Chapter 2852. Time flowed by. Not long after, many geniuses returned from the martial path, causing a commotion in the training ground. The 3 women of the Yu family have all failed. None of them succeeded. This means that among the geniuses here, only Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing are still in the martial path. TSK, as expected of the number 1 genius of the 5 realms 50 years ago. He truly lives up to his reputation. I have a premonition that Shi Tianjun will be able to complete the martial path. It's hard to say whether Dong Wangqing can complete the martial path or not. I feel that this person is too arrogant. Moreover, I've only heard that his talent in the martial path is very high. I've never seen it with my own eyes. However, I do hope that Dong Wangqing can complete the martial path and play a game of martial chess with Shi Tianjun. Otherwise, it would be too boring for Shi Tianjun to take away the divine martial token directly. Li Huai, Lu Chao and the others heard the discussions in the surroundings and their faces sank. The current situation was extremely disadvantageous for them. Shi Tianjun had already declared war against them, and Dong Wangqing was also plotting against Hong Xiu. If the 2 of them completed the martial path, even if Brother Zhao completed the martial path, he would still have to face a pincer attack from the 2 of them. Li Huai and Lu Chao slowly exhaled. It was meaningless for them to worry here. They could only hope that either Shi Tianjun or Dong Wangqing would be defeated. Otherwise, when the martial chess was played, it would be a fair one-on-one battle. This way, Brother Zhao's chances of winning would be much higher. At this moment, all the geniuses and peak divine emperors on the training grounds heard a deep rumbling sound at the same time. It's coming from the divine martial pass. Their gazes immediately looked over. Through the huge entrance, they saw that one of the 3,000 martial pads suddenly turned from green to dazzling red. Although they were far away, they could still clearly see a 6-clawed divine dragon soaring into the sky. Shi Tianjun stood on the dragon's head. His long hair fluttered in the wind and his aura surged to the sky. The divine dragon flew into the depths of the darkness and roared towards the sky. The roar of the dragon actually passed through the entrance and entered the ears of everyone on the training grounds. They could clearly feel the excitement of the divine dragon. The divine dragon slammed its claw down, shattering the void within a radius of 99,999 zhang. A gigantic green lotus blossomed from within, its light illuminating the surrounding darkness. In the center of the lotus, there was a circular stone platform with a radius of 1,000 feet. It was as black as ink and had a profound aura. It made people feel extremely heavy, just like the legendary abyss stone. Above the stone platform, there was a gray chessboard. The surface of the chessboard was chaotic, as if it was a newly formed world that had yet to fully evolve. Not far away from it, a badge the size of a palm floated in the air, emitting a martial aura. Shenwu Order. Some people held their breath. Then, Shi Tianjun paused for a moment. Then, in a flash, he landed near the chessboard and reached out his hand to grab the Shenwu Order. However, he seemed to have encountered a barrier between heaven and earth. When his illusory hand was 7 inches away from the Shenwu Order, no matter what technique he used, he could not advance any further. Shi Tianjun is unable to obtain the order. This also means that there are still people who can walk the path of martial arts. From the looks of it, Dong Wangqing definitely won't have any problems. Haha, that's more interesting. Tell me, who do you think will win the Shenwu Order? Do you want to take a gamble? In my opinion, Shi Tianjun has a higher chance of winning. You have all walked the path of martial arts and understand how profound it is. Since Shi Tianjun can walk the path of martial arts before Dong Wangqing, it means that his talent in martial arts is much higher than Dong Wangqing. You're wrong. It's too early to come to a conclusion. What is this martial chess? We don't know how to play it. Moreover, The strength of their talent in martial arts is not determined by the time they walk the path of martial art. What you said is just a one-sided view. Li Huai and Lu Chao both had serious expressions on their faces. As expected, just like what the cultivators in the training hall said, after about 90 breaths of time, another ancient path shone with red light. Dong Wangqing rode on a dragon and flew up proudly. Shi Tianjun turned around and looked at Dong Wangqing. When their gazes met in the air, it was as if lightning had collided. When Li Huai and Lu Chao saw this, they couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. Although Dong Wangqing was incomparably arrogant and they couldn't wait to get rid of him, they couldn't help but admit that Dong Wangqing's talent was indeed higher than theirs. "Brother Zhao, it's up to you now," the two of them said in their hearts. Actually, the two of them didn't have much hope that the martial chess would be fair. There was never absolute fairness in the competition of martial arts. However, at this moment, an explosion suddenly occurred on one of the martial paths, spreading out waves of shocking demonic qi. Everyone was stunned. This was the first time they had seen a martial path exploding. Soon, they saw a figure running out from the surging demonic qi. His face was covered in dust, and his body was covered in blood. He looked more miserable than any of them. Brother Zhao?" Li Huai and Lu Chao's eyes widened. "What's going on?" Brother Zhao actually failed to walk the path of martial arts. Brother Zhao's talent in martial arts is inferior to Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing? It's over. Jiang Xiaoyao and the others, Li Huai and Lu Chao's protectors, felt a chill in their hearts. They already knew that the person they had to rely on in the third stage was this person. But now this person had failed. Their last hope had been completely destroyed. Chapter 2853. The Blue Dome Lord was extremely depressed. He had never been in such a sorry state since he was young. As someone with the connate chaotic body, no matter how ordinary his martial arts talent was, he was still stronger than Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing. Logically speaking, it should be easy for him to complete the martial arts path. However, the Blue Dome Lord had never expected that it would be fine when he was in the martial arts path. He could simulate some illusions according to some of the techniques he cultivated and try to influence him. However, when he reached the end of the martial arts path, the techniques he cultivated were too terrifying. With the ability of the martial arts path, he couldn't simulate any illusions at all. In the end, the martial arts path was damaged. He tried to call out to lone Taoist to express his anger and dissatisfaction, but he was directly ignored. He didn't want to retreat just like that and forcefully continued on the martial arts path. In the end, the martial arts path directly exploded and almost injured him. What kind of logic was this? We failed. Li Huai and Lu Chao had mixed feelings. Although they were favored by the heavens, they had failed many things since they were young. However, this failure seemed a little different, and it made them feel rather uncomfortable. However, what else could they say now? They couldn't blame the Blue Dome Lord. After all, the Blue Dome Lord had been walking for much longer than them. The other party's martial arts talent was indeed high, but it couldn't compare to Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing. Suddenly, the two of them thought of Jiang Hongxiu at the same time and looked at her. If the two of them felt so uncomfortable, how would Hongxiu feel now? In order to obtain the Hellfire token, she had performed such a forbidden technique and gave it her all. Li Huai forced himself to calm down and advised, "Hongxiu, don't take this matter to heart. Although we didn't succeed, we tried our best. It's just that the fate with Exquisite's inheritance hasn't arrived yet." Lu Chao also said, "Hongxiu, I think that since the other party put in so much effort to leave behind Exquisite's inheritance, it proves that he still wants to pass it on to Exquisite's descendants. He won't really cut off your hope. There will definitely be a chance in the future." Jiang Hongxiu looked calm. However, the calmer she was, the more uncomfortable Li Huai and Lu Chao felt. Even their faces were a little gloomy. While they were communicating with each other, the master of the Blue Dome arrived beside Li Huai, Lu Chao, and the others under many gazes. When the Blue Dome master saw the expressions of the two of them and the others, he could not help but be taken aback for a moment. Then, he quickly reacted and sent a voice transmission with a smile. "What's with your expressions? It's not over yet. We still have a chance." Jiang Hongxiu nodded gently and said, "I also think there is a chance." "There's still a chance? What are you two talking about? Could it be that you have prepared some sort of backup plan?" Li Huai, Lu Chao, and the others all became spirited as a glimmer of hope rose in their hearts. "Didn't you guys notice that Qin Huan hasn't come out yet?" The master of the Blue Dome said confidently, "Don't worry, Qin Huan will definitely be able to complete the martial path." Qin Huan? Li Huai's face was filled with astonishment, and he almost couldn't believe his ears. For a moment, he forgot to send a voice transmission, and his voice rang out in the training hall. "Qin Huan can complete the martial path? Are you kidding me?" He was not the only one. Lu Chao, Jiang Xiaoya, and the others were the same. When the favored ones and the peak divine emperors in the training hall heard this, they were stunned for a moment. Then, they understood the meaning of the words and laughed in unison. "Ha ha, did I hear wrongly? The people around Jiang Hongxiu are actually pinning their hopes on Qin Huan? Hey, you don't say. Until now, Qin Huan has not come out yet. If Qin Huan has not come out, then he must have fallen into an illusion. Weren't there a few peak divine emperors who came out later than those heavens' prides? However, when those peak divine emperors came out, they were all severely injured without exception because they were too immersed in it. Tisk tsk, Qin Huan can take the initiative to summon the emperor's body and the emperor's weapon, which really surprised me. However, if you say that this playboy can complete the martial path, I won't believe it even if you beat me to death." Although Zhao Wushuang and the other favored ones did not say anything, the smile on their faces carried a trace of ridicule. Especially Jiang Sheng and Jiang Chu. The two of them laughed and their faces became rosy. This should be the funniest joke that they had heard in the past 10 years. At the same time, in the Divine Martial Pass, on top of the Azure Lotus, Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing stood with the chessboard between them. Both of them radiated divine light as their auras rose to the peak, causing a shocking collision to occur. The two of them were accumulating their strength for the upcoming battle of martial chess. However, the two of them soon frowned. Why hasn't the battle started after so long? "Senior, it's time to start the battle, right?" Shi Tianjun said loudly. He used a mysterious technique to communicate with the void, and his voice reverberated in the endless darkness. "There's one more person." A cold voice sounded. "There's one more person?" Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing were slightly shocked. This martial path was not simple. Which favored one was about to come out? At this moment, on the training field, the Blue Dome Lord heard the mocking laughter of the crowd, and couldn't help but sneer. Just as he was about to refute, a deafening explosion sounded above their heads. Everyone's smile froze and they subconsciously turned their heads to look. They saw that among the many martial paths, there was a calm martial path that suddenly emitted resplendent golden light, illuminating the surroundings. Immediately, 9 dragon roars resounded and 9 divine dragons soared into the sky from the martial path. Qin Nan stood calmly on the head of the Dragon King, staring at the 2 cultivators on the blue stone lotus. At this moment, it was earth-shattering. Chapter 2854. At this moment, Zhao Wushuang and the other young masters, Lei Hongshan and the other children of the Sector Lord, Saint Jiang, Jiang Chu, the 3 women of the Yu family and the other top godly emperors were all astonished. They couldn't believe their eyes. Qin Huan? Li Huai, Lu Chao, Jiang Xiaoya and the other protectors were all in a daze as they muttered to themselves. They had already seen Qin Huan in a new light and knew that Qin Huan was not simple. However, they had never thought that Qin Huan could complete the martial path with his own strength. This meant that Qin Huan's talent in the martial path was above theirs. Wait, why did Qin Huan's light turn golden? Why were there a total of 9 divine dragons sending him off? Could it be? Soon, everyone present realized that something was amiss. With their experience and knowledge, they instantly understood what this abnormality meant. An unbelievable thought appeared in their mind. Qin Huan's talent in the martial path was not only stronger than Zhao Wushuang and the other supreme talents, but he was also stronger than Shi Tianjun and Dong Huangqing? Otherwise, why would there be such a change in the martial path? How is this possible? Saint Jiang and Jiang Chu muttered to themselves. If it was someone else, they might be able to accept it. However, they had always seen Qin Huan as an ant. Now, this ant had actually surpassed them in terms of martial path talent. Jiang Hongxiu was surprised. She was also very talented in the martial path. If she were to walk the martial path, she was confident that she would not be weaker than Shi Tianjun and Dong Huangqing. However, she was not confident that she would be able to trigger such a phenomenon. Qin Nan, what kind of person are you? Under everyone's gaze, Qin Nan walked down from the Dragon King's head and stood in front of the primal chaos chessboard. He, Shi Tianjun and Dong Huangqing formed a tripartite formation. Shi Tianjun and Dong Huangqing finally collected their thoughts. Qin Nan's appearance had indeed given them a great shock, leaving them in great astonishment. Very good, very good. Shi Tianjun was not shocked but overjoyed. He laughed and said, "This is the only way for me to take away your cultivation partner's Linglong inheritance. That will be more interesting." Qin Huan, you really didn't expect this. If that's the case, then the so-called hedonist is just a cover for you. Dong Huangqing's eyes shone with a divine light as he exuded an imposing aura. However, this is also good. I will defeat you in your strongest aspect. After that, I will take Hongxiu as my concubine. Qin Nan couldn't help but laugh and said, "Who gave you two such great confidence?" From their words, it was as if he would definitely lose in the upcoming martial arts chess. The atmosphere between the three instantly froze, turning into a state of mutual hostility. However, 2 of them were famous geniuses, Peak Dao Realm Divine Emperors, while the other was only a mere ruler Realm Divine Emperor. Furthermore, both of them were targeting the Sovereign Lord. In terms of cultivation base, it was almost as if 2 heavenly gods from the highest heavens had set their sights on a mortal in the mortal world. However, this mortal showed no sign of fear when facing 2 heaven gods. Instead, he was emitting a magnificent battle intent. "I'll now announce the rules of the martial arts chess," a voice said. The lone cultivator's figure appeared beside the chessboard. It seemed like he was quite interested in the martial arts chess. The lone cultivator glanced at Qin Nan and waved his hand. The chessboard immediately transformed into the immortal realm, the demon realm, and the mortal realm, separated by the boundary river. Shi Tianjun was in the immortal realm, Dong Huangqing was in the demon realm, and Qin Nan was in the mortal realm. In martial chess, every single one of you possess 99,999 pieces. Every single piece is condensed into form from some sort of pure energy. For example, the energy of Yang lightning, the energy of Yin water, the energy of calamity, the energy of dark snow, and so on and so forth. There are strong and weak forces, high and low forces in the martial arts chess. As for the 3 of you, your chess pieces are exactly the same, without any difference. The lone cultivator flicked his finger as he spoke. 3 glowing discs appeared behind Qin Nan and the others. The discs were similar to storage bags. Although they did not look huge on the surface, they contained a lot of godly glows inside them. The martial arts chess is a game where you will hold the pieces of the martial arts chess and place them on your chessboard to attack your opponent's chessboard. If your opponent's chessboard is unable to defend itself and is shattered into pieces, it means you have lost the game. Before the game starts, you will have 3 hours to comprehend the pieces of the martial arts chess. After that, you will not have any time to rest until the outcome of the game is decided. After placing the pieces, you are allowed to attack one another as you please. In addition to that, you are allowed to use other tricks, but they are only limited to the chessboard. 2 of the rules are absolutely forbidden. You are not allowed to attack your opponent's actual body with the force of your cultivation. At the same time, you are not allowed to interfere with your opponent's actual body. If I find out, I will disqualify you right away. Now, let's begin. The lone cultivator waved his hand. A futon glowing with a godly glow appeared behind the 3 cultivators. The futons were used to help them comprehend the martial arts chess. Chapter 2855. When the lone Taoist said this, his voice was not loud, but as the master of the 3 saints' space, and he did not deliberately hide his voice, every word he said could be heard clearly in the dojo. So this is the battle chess? Zhao Wushuang and the rest of the geniuses were overjoyed when they recovered from the astonishment. Qin Huan's sudden appearance had given them a great fright. Not only did it mean that Qin Huan had an outstanding martial talent, it also meant that Jiang Hongxiu had a great chance of obtaining the Xinwu badge. However, the opportunity that had just appeared was completely destroyed by the lone cultivator's words. Luckily, Jiang Xing and Jiang Chu couldn't help but reveal a gloating smile. So what if Jiang Hongxiu had an outstanding martial talent? So what if Jiang Hongxiu had mastered the martial path? In the end, Qin Nan would surely lose. Jiang Hongxiu would not be able to obtain the Xinwu badge. What a pity! Yu Shuiling, Yu Shuiyao, and Yu Shuiyu let out sighs. Judging from the current situation, even though Qin Huan's martial talent was outstanding, most likely even more so than Shi Tianjun and Dong Huangqing, Qin Huan had a fatal weakness, which was that his cultivation was too low, his experience was too limited, and his knowledge was too limited. According to the rules of the battle chess, among the close to 100,000 chess pieces of the essence of power, the powerful chess pieces of the essence of power were obviously the most important. The reason being that only the chess pieces that had comprehended the essence of power would be able to set up more powerful chess pieces and evolve more terrifying skills. However, there were many powerful essences of power that could only be understood after reaching a certain level. Even if Qin Huan had an outstanding martial talent and could forcefully comprehend the essences of power, it would still take him a long time. However, as peak Dao realm emperors and the geniuses of the top factions, they did not need such a long time. After 6 hours, the chess pieces of the essence of power that they had comprehended were at least 10 times or even 100 times more than Qin Huan. Therefore, how could Qin Huan fight against them? How could the number of martial arts that he could evolve be comparable to them? Besides, this was based on the fact that Qin Huan could forcefully comprehend the essences of power. If an extremely powerful chess piece appeared among the nearly 100,000 chess pieces, and Qin Huan was unable to comprehend it even after crossing realms, he would definitely lose even faster. Crap! The face of the Blue Dome Master immediately darkened. Although Qin Nan came from the future, he knew very well that Qin Nan would not be very strong in the future. His cultivation was most likely similar to his. Moreover, this still required Qin Nan to comprehend on his own. He couldn't find the Emperor body and the Time Blade to help him. When Li Huai, Lu Chao, and the others heard the discussions in the surroundings, many of them taking joy in their misfortune, their expressions turned extremely unsightly. They even felt despair. In the end, was it just a useless struggle? Taoist Jiang, you don't have to worry too much. This brat's martial talent is definitely not as simple as just slightly surpassing Shi Tianjun and Dong Huangqing. We still have a chance, the master of the Blue Dome said in a deep voice. I'm not worried. Jiang Hongxiu shook her head. From the initial certainty of defeat to a glimmer of hope, what else did she have to worry about? Li Huai and Lu Chao were affected by their emotions and gradually calmed down. The two of them raised their heads at the same time to look at Qin Nan's thin figure. They couldn't help but think to themselves, Qin Huan, everything depends on you. At the same time, on the green lotus stone platform, Shi Tianjun and Dong Huangqing looked at each other and saw the high fighting spirit in each other's eyes. With their wisdom, they naturally understood the various advantages and disadvantages of this martial arts chess. Qin Nan exhaled a mouthful of turbid qi. Without any nonsense, he immediately sat cross-legged on the futon and his mind was completely immersed in the light wheel. The dense divine light instantly magnified countless times in his heart. Many of the divine lights were as huge as stars. Their auras were vast and extraordinary. Under these divine lights, he was like an ant. Even the weakest divine light was dozens of times bigger than him. He had to look up to them. Just as everyone had expected, his cultivation was really too weak. The level of the true essence of these powers had far exceeded his understanding. The Emperor's body and the time blade in Qin Nan's body almost instantly sensed this situation. The two majestic existences fell silent at the same time. They really couldn't help him now. Even if they forcefully told Qin Nan the profoundness of these divine lights, Qin Nan still couldn't understand it because the gap was still there. Qin Nan had to completely comprehend them from the very beginning. Only then could he fully use them and unleash their power. Is the difference between our realms too big? Qin Nan muttered to himself. Immediately, a shocking will erupted. The more difficult it was, the more he wanted to move forward. No matter how big the difference was, he wouldn't retreat at all. He would do his best. Qin Nan's mind instantly became like countless moths. Some of them flew towards the weaker divine lights, while the rest flew towards the most dazzling and huge divine light. Boom! The majestic aura and the unimaginable profoundness almost caused his mind to collapse. However, he didn't lose in the end. It was like he was in the depths of a boundless desert. Even though he couldn't see the end, he still continued to move forward step by step. Chapter 2856. 6 hours passed in the blink of an eye for all the cultivators. When the lone cultivator announced that the time was up, the godly light behind Qin Nan and the others and the futons they were sitting on immediately disappeared. Everyone's attention was gathered onto the trio. Li Huai, Lu Chao, and the others could feel their hearts hanging in their throats, as they were extremely nervous. Qin Nan, Shi Tianjun, and Dong Huangqing quickly arrived in front of the chessboard. The three of them looked at each other in the air, and then raised their right hands at the same time. A ray of godly light immediately appeared between their fingers. The martial truth that they had comprehended would be used by them. With a single thought they would be able to manifest it. Pack. The three of them placed their chess pieces on the chessboard of the three realms at the same time. Shi Tianjuan's chess piece unleashed a shocking wind intent. It was different from the wind that one would normally see. Instead, it was a kind of wind intent that only existed in the void. It was extremely destructive. Legend had it that even immortal kings would be killed by the wind blades if they encountered a void storm without a monarch weapon in hand. As for the chess piece that Dong Huangqing placed down, a golden light radiated from it, and an incomparably dense will spread out. This light was the light of the divine nation. It would only appear when the divine nation was born. Could illuminate the world. Qin Nan's chess piece unleashed a wave of water intent. This water intent was not ordinary water. It was called the earth water and existed in the deepest part of the earth. However, Everyone could tell that Qin Nan's will of earth and water was significantly weaker than Shi Tianjuan's will of wind and Dongwang Qing's will of the kingdom of God. As expected, Zhao Wushuang, Jiang Xing, Jiang Chu, and the rest of the geniuses could not help but smile. Although the difference between Qin Nan and the two of them was not as big as the difference between heaven and earth, as more chess pieces were placed, the difference would become bigger. Pack, pack, pack. Qin Nan's team of 3 did not stop at all. One chess piece after another was placed down, and one aura after another containing the essence of power soared into the sky. In just a few breaths of time, they had already placed down tens of chess pieces. The chessboard before Shi Tianjun and Dongwang Qing seemed to be transformed by fiend gods. It was extremely profound, and its aura towered up into the sky. In comparison, the mortal world where Qin Nan lived seemed ordinary and dull. Suddenly, when Shi Tianjun placed down another piece, the chessboard before him underwent a shocking change. A crisp sound rang out in all directions as a huge, azure sword materialized, sweeping away countless streaks of sword light. This was the ninefold Void Heaven sword he had created with the Void Wind essence as the foundation, the ninefold sword essence as the supplement, and many other truths of power. Dongwang Qing completed his transformation almost at the same time as Yi Futian. Countless rays of golden light blossomed before Dongwang Qing, and from the golden light, a gigantic figure stood up. This figure held a lightning sword in his hand, and his killing intent was awe-inspiring. The Divine General Protector. At this moment, although Shi Tianjun and Dongwang Qing did not communicate at all, they both did the same thing. The ninefold Void Heaven sword and the Divine General Protector crossed the immortal world and demon world respectively and slashed towards the mortal world. When the rules of the martial battle chess were announced, the two of them already knew that it was impossible for Qin Huan to defeat them. Under normal circumstances, the two of them would not join forces to deal with a common enemy. However, they would definitely not give Qin Huan any chance. They would not let him wait until both of them were injured. Therefore, they had to defeat Qin Huan completely first. Only then would they have a showdown with their true opponents. In the blink of an eye, Qin Nan seemed to have expected this. He placed down a chess piece, and in the mortal world before him, torrential waves instantly surged. Moreover, the waves instantly transformed into 3 mountains. 3 mountains of earth, water, and mountains. The intent of earth, water, and mountains were vast and boundless. The intent of mountains was heavy and strong. Qin Nan merged these 2 essences together, and in addition to the other essences of power, he finally formed a powerful defensive force. Boom, 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 boom. The collision unfolded on the chessboard. Although the defensive power of the 3 mountains of earth, water, and mountains was no small matter, the essences of power that were formed from them were simply too weak. Therefore, in just an instant 2 of the mountains were destroyed, and only a single mountain was left. Qin Huan, you've lost. Shi Tianjun and Dongwang Qing's killing moves once again released surging waves of power. With just one more attack, they would be able to easily destroy the mountain. With just one more attack, they would be able to destroy the chessboard of the mortal world. All of this would only take 2 breaths of time to complete. In such a short period of time, even if Qin Huan continued to place his chess piece, it would be too late. Qin Huan is going to lose. Ha ha, I've said it before. Qin Huan will definitely lose. Tisk tsk, he lost in just one move. As expected, just having talent in the martial Dao is far from enough. Zhao Wushuang, Jiang Xing, Jiang Chu, and a few other proud sons of heaven heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts. Although they were certain that Qin Huan would lose without a doubt, as long as Qin Huan stood there was a faint possibility. Now it was completely gone. Damn, kid, you have to hang in there. Li Huai, Lu Chao, and the rest did not need to be said because even the Blue Dome Master's expression changed slightly at this moment, and he subconsciously clenched his fists. Only Jiang Hongxiu's expression remained as calm as before. She had already made up her mind to accept any result. However, at this moment, Jiang Hongxiu's beautiful eyes clearly saw that Qin Huan's expression did not change. Taking advantage of the moment when his opponent attacked, he threw out a chess piece with a bang. This chess piece was exceptionally different from the previous ones. Chapter 2857. Swoosh. An incomparably sharp intent that seemed to be able to cut through everything in the world was released from the chess piece. It was actually not any weaker than the chess pieces that Dong Huangqing and Shi Tianjun had played. This was the true essence of the Tao of Saber. Its name was art slashing. As expected, one can forcefully comprehend the true essence of a higher level of power. But so what? It's just one chess piece. It's not enough to form a technique. Shi Tianjun and Dong Huangqing did not think much of it. They only treated it as Qin Huan's desperate resistance. However, at this moment a shocking scene occurred. Countless water droplets floated up from the mortal world. In the blink of an eye, they condensed into two sabers that floated above the chessboard. Earth-water slashing saber. How is this possible? Shi Tianjun and Dong Huangqing's eyes narrowed. There were less than 20 chess pieces and they could actually form two techniques? On the surface, the rules of martial chess seemed very simple. One only needed to comprehend the true essence of power and form a technique. However, in reality it was extremely complicated. Not only did it test one's martial talent and cultivation base, but it also tested one's ability to see the big picture. For example, if you put down your first Go piece and played all the way to the 15th Go piece, you would be able to construct a new magical technique. However, if you didn't do anything, you would need at least another 15 Go pieces to construct a new magical technique, or even more. However, if one made arrangements in advance, after placing 15 chess pieces to form a technique, one could only use 10 chess pieces to form a second technique with some chess pieces from the 15 chess pieces in front of them. Furthermore, after a few dozen or even 100 chess pieces were played, a few key chess pieces could be used to link up with the dozens or even hundreds of chess pieces in front of them to create an even more powerful spell technique that could deal a fatal blow to the opponent. As geniuses, Shi Tianjun and Dong Huangqing naturally had the ability to see the big picture. In those 12 hours, after understanding the true essence of each power, they began to comprehend the true essence of each power purposefully. When they placed the first chess piece, their plan had already begun. However, according to their plan, if they wanted to connect the dozens of chess pieces they had played before, they would still need to play 10 more chess pieces. It wasn't that they didn't want to cast a second spell as soon as possible, but constructing a spell wasn't an easy task. In their calculations, 10 pieces was the limit. Bang bang bang! 2 cold blades slashed out, one into the celestial world and the other into the demon world. Attack against attack, attack as defense. Although the power of the 2 cold blades was much weaker than the magical techniques unleashed by Dong Huangqing and Shi Tianjun, they were still able to block them for a moment. Coupled with the reappearance of the 3 layers of earth, water, and mountains, it was impossible for the 2 of them to destroy the human world in just 2 breaths. Qin Huan, although your martial Tao talent has surpassed both of us, your cultivation base is simply too high. The amount of true essence you have comprehended at a high level is simply too little. Dong Huangqing reacted quickly. His aura surged as he said, "Everything that you are doing now is merely delaying your fate of destruction. In the end, a gap is still a gap. You can't make up for it with just your martial talent." Shi Tianjun was the same. The 2 of them did not waste any time. They quickly placed down 1 Go piece after another. Every go piece was as powerful as before, releasing a shocking aura. Qin Nan's eyes were sharp, and his fighting spirit surged. He did not react to the two's words at all. Instead, he sent out go stones one after another. Among them, there were weak ones and strong ones. Basically, there were 3 weak ones and 1 strong one. In the blink of an eye, Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing sent out another 7 go pieces. An invisible aura condensed above the immortal and demon world. It was as if a great mystery was being born. At this moment, Qin Nan sent out another go piece. In the human world, another wave was formed. 2 huge figures appeared. They were clad in battle armor and their fighting spirits soared into the sky. Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing were shocked. They did not expect that before they could even unleash their second magical technique, their opponents had already unleashed a total of 3 magical techniques. However, what made them heave a sigh of relief was that the level of these 2 huge figures was still too low. They would definitely not be able to break through their magical techniques within a breath's time. A breath's time was enough for them to unleash their second magical technique. At that time, the situation would be completely reversed. The 2 huge figures shouted the word, "Kill," and immediately rushed into the immortal and demon worlds like rainbows. At the crucial moment, the 2 huge figures did an unbelievable action. They actually held the earth and water blade, and became one with the blade. They were like Qin Nan's clones as they slashed out an unbelievable blade light. 2 magical techniques fused into one? At this moment, Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing's expressions changed. They did not expect Qin Nan to be able to do such an unbelievable thing. Fight! Qin Nan's will burst forth. When he was comprehending the true essence of the power, he was still thinking about a question. How should he win? How should he make up for the huge gap between their cultivation realms? Would he be able to defeat Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing just by using fewer go stones and unleashing more magical techniques? No. That was impossible. Therefore, there was only one path for him to take. Not only did he have to set up a huge Go game, he also had to make every part of the Go game reach the pinnacle and unleash an unimaginable power. Since the power of one magical technique was not enough, he would unleash 2 magical techniques at the same time. Chapter 2858. Boom. 2 explosions could be heard. Although the 9 layers Void Heaven Sword and the Divine Protector General were extremely powerful, their previous attacks had already consumed a lot of their energy. Now that they were hit by the saber light, they immediately shattered and turned into nothingness. Not good! Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing's expressions changed slightly. Now, their immortal world and demon world were completely empty. If they were hit by another attack, the immortal world and demon world would collapse and the victor would be decided. However, there was only 1 chess piece left. When the 2 figures waved their sabers again, their bodies emitted a dazzling divine light as the power of their divine bodies was fully activated. But the 2 of them moved 3 times faster than before and placed a chess piece down. Immediately, 2 shocking auras rushed out from the immortal world and demon world. They were the Extreme Snow Celestial Sword and the Divine Nations Saint. The higher one's cultivation was, not only would they have an advantage in comprehending the true essence of power, their speed of placing chess pieces was also much faster than those with lower cultivation. However, they felt that they would definitely win against Qin Nan. Therefore, they did not use their full strength. Everyone on the training ground was stunned. What's going on? Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing seemed to be at a disadvantage? Li Huai, Lu Chao and the others were shocked. The light of hope in front of them suddenly shone brighter. On the contrary, Zhao Wushuang, Jiang Sheng, Jiang Chu and the others felt uneasy. Impossible! Impossible! No matter how strong Qin Huan's martial Dao talent is, it's impossible for him to be a match for the 2 great sky prides. What happened just now was just an accident. Qin Huan will definitely not be able to maintain it. Zhao Wushuang, Jiang Xing, Jiang Chu and the others quickly calmed themselves down. At the same time, the martial arts chess continued, and it was even more intense than before. Although Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing were arrogant, they weren't at the point where they didn't know what was good for them. Now that things had come to this, they no longer dared to look down on Qin Huan. Both of them unleashed their fastest speed and placed down one chess piece after another. Qin Nan turned a deaf ear to all of this. His fighting spirit was high, and his chess pieces moved according to his rhythm in the mortal world. Before long, before Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing could unleash their third attack, Qin Nan had already unleashed his fourth and fifth attack. Without exception, all of them were offensive attacks. This was also Qin Nan's strategy. Apart from the first defensive spell technique, he could turn the situation around and switch from defense to offense. Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing's eyes turned cold. If this continued, before they could cast their third spell, Qin Huan would be able to cast his sixth spell and form another spell within a spell. At that time, they would be in danger. The two of them didn't hesitate at all. When Qin Nan released his sixth spell, they released their third spell. Immediately after that, they changed their chess path. They didn't continue to play the chess pieces they had just played. Instead, they moved to other corners of the Immortal Realm and Devil Realm and played chess pieces one by one. However, these chess pieces were much weaker than the chess pieces they had originally played. However, less than 7 of them had already formed a spell. This spell was no longer focused on offense, but purely on defense. It was similar to the triple mountain of earth and water. When they were comprehending the true essence of power, they deliberately comprehended some of the weaker true essence of power so that they could quickly form a defensive spell. This way they could use it at a critical moment. But now they were forced to use it in advance. Time slowly passed. On the chessboard of the mortal world, more and more spells were formed and attacked the Immortal Realm and Devil Realm. The more chess pieces that were placed, the more obvious the advantage that Qin Nan had. This caused the Immortal Realm and Devil Realm to be overshadowed. The training ground was completely silent. The impact of this scene on them was simply too great. With such a huge gap between their realms, Qin Huan could still rely on his own strength to suppress Dong Wangqing and Shi Tianjun. How powerful was Qin Huan's martial talent? I really didn't expect Qin Huan to be able to do this. The faces of Zhao Wushuang, Jiang Xing, Jiang Chu and the others turned gloomy. However, Qin Huan's realm is so low and his divine sense is not strong enough. With so many chess pieces, how many can he comprehend? He definitely won't be able to continue attacking like this. Zhao Wushuang, Jiang Xing, Jiang Chu and the others thought that Qin Huan would definitely lose. Just as they had guessed, Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing had comprehended roughly 5,000 to 6,000 chess pieces of the Immortal Realm. Qin Nan had only comprehended 1,000 to 2,000 chess pieces. In fact, with Qin Nan's martial talent, he could completely comprehend 3,000 chess pieces. However, Qin Nan didn't waste his time on that. This was because it was meaningless for him to comprehend 1,000 chess pieces. As long as he couldn't unleash an overwhelming power, he would definitely not be able to defeat Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing. As time passed, he would fall into an awkward situation where he ran out of chess pieces and would definitely lose. Therefore, he used the time to comprehend the 1,000 chess pieces to ponder and deduce. Pot. One chess piece after another was placed in the 3 realms. Qin Nan was like a huge pot that had spread its wings. He continued to soar and his battle intent became stronger and stronger. Suddenly, Qin Nan's eyes flashed and he placed the 80th chess piece. Chapter 2859. Roar. 2 dragon roars resounded, and they were transmitted into the training ground, allowing everyone to hear them clearly. Following it, the crowd saw 2 godly dragons flying out from the 80 chess pieces. Unlike the usual godly dragons, the dragons were made of water and earth, while the saber intents turned into sharp claws. On top of that, the various arts that Qin Nan had executed previously had turned into scales. The godly dragons soared in the mortal world. They uttered a roar, firing a terrifying dragon breath into the immortal realm and demon realm like the punishment of the heavenly Tao. It possessed a shocking destructive power. A formation? Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing were dumbfounded. They did not expect Qin Nan to be able to set up a game with only 80 chess pieces, allowing the power of the martial arts to combine into a brand new martial art. They had their own formations too, but they would need to use over 200 chess pieces, or even 300 chess pieces to execute the formation. However, they did not have the time to be astonished. The 2 geniuses tensed up. Their hands turned into countless afterimages as they continued to move the chess pieces. The combination of the 2 arts at the beginning had put them at a disadvantage, forcing them to passively defend themselves against Qin Nan. However, the formation had given them a strong sense of danger. They would surely lose if they were careless. The reason being that the power of the 2 godly dragons summoned by the formation had surpassed every art that they had executed. Bang bang bang! The immortal realm and demon realm shuddered vigorously. One by one, the martial arts would be destroyed by the dragon breath from afar. The chess pieces that were formed by the power of the true essence of the immortal realm suddenly lost their brilliance. The combination of the 2 arts. However, as geniuses, how could they possibly lose so easily? After witnessing Qin Nan's combination of the 2 arts, they had already deduced the moves in their hearts when they were placing their chess pieces. They even disrupted their initial formation and executed some arts that were similar to the true essence of the immortal realm in advance. Although the combination of the 2 arts was not perfect and could not perfectly merge the power of the 2 arts, the power that they could unleash had greatly surpassed the arts that they had executed before. Qin Nan completely ignored the scene. He was fully focused on his chess pieces. All of a sudden, he made a shocking move. With a snap, he placed a chess piece on the other side of the human world. Is he going to create another formation? Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing immediately realized what Qin Nan was planning. Their faces sank as they quickly thought of a plan. They had already tried their best to execute the first formation. If they did not come up with a plan, they would fail to execute the second formation. Time gradually passed. In just a few breaths' time, Qin Nan had placed more than 30 pieces on the ground and executed 3 different arts. However, when Qin Nan placed the 39th chess piece on the board, their auras merged and formed 2 figures. The 2 figures were different from the previous illusionary figures. Their bodies were formed by flames and were covered in ice and snow, forming an armor. They were also holding a saber formed by the wind in their hands. Besides, their auras were extremely similar to Qin Nan's. Their bodies were emitting a battle intent as if they were going to defeat all their opponents. They were the second formation that Qin Nan had deduced from the divine battle spirit. Although the second formation is faster than the first formation, it only uses less than 40 chess pieces. Its power is significantly weaker. Besides, it's far from enough to defeat us. Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing quickly placed their chess pieces. Although they did not have much time, they had already come up with a plan. However, at that instant, Qin Nan displayed a shocking sight. With a snap, he placed a chess piece in the middle of the 2 spell matrices. The auras of the 2 spell matrices actually merged and connected. Following a roar, the 2 figures soared into the sky and landed on the back of the godly dragon. Their auras merged with the godly dragon. At that instant, a tremendous aura burst out and soared into the sky like a peerless godly weapon being drawn out from its sheath. Merging the formations into one? Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing were dumbfounded. They could not believe what they were seeing. It was extremely difficult to execute a single formation, but Qin Nan had managed to merge the two formations together. What kind of martial arts talent was this? How is this possible? The cultivators on the dojo were stunned. Even Zhao Wushuang, Jiang Chu, Jiang Wushuang, and the others were lost in their thoughts. His cultivation was too low? His comprehension of chess pieces was too low? That was indeed the case, but so what? We've won. Li Huai, Lu Chao, and the others were excited. Even the Blue Dome Lord's eyes were glowing. Jiang Hongxiu's eyes were filled with splendor. Qin Nan had fully displayed his unparalleled martial talent. He had made up for the huge gap between the two of them and even surpassed them. Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing would definitely not be able to withstand such a move. Are we going to lose? Dong Wangqing came back to his senses and his face instantly turned gloomy. They had such an advantage, but this was the outcome? Did this mean that Dong Wangqing's martial talent was far inferior to Qin Huan's? Qin Huan, I really did not expect that Dong Wangqing and I would be forced into such a situation. Shi Tianjuan's expression suddenly calmed down as he said, I must admit that I underestimated you earlier. Your attainments in the martial Dao have already far surpassed mine. But Chapter 2860. Dong Wangqing's eyes lit up when he heard that. Could it be that Shi Tianjun still had some tricks up his sleeve? Your martial talent can make up for the difference in cultivation level. Unfortunately, it can't make up for it completely. Your weakness will become your sorrow today. Shi Tianjun continued with an indifferent expression, since I said that I would take away your partner's Linglong inheritance, I will definitely take it away. No matter how you resist, it will be meaningless. As soon as he finished speaking, the space-time cannon in Shi Tianjuan's body started to circulate. His aura became ethereal and mysterious, making people feel as if they were looking at flowers in the fog. Not only that, but the heaven-rising bell also appeared behind him with a loud bang, releasing a vast pressure. You can't win a game of chess, so you want to make a move? Do you think there's no one in my Qin family? A thunderous voice exploded. The Emperor's physique and time blade appeared at the same time, causing the surrounding space to tremble. The time blade even deliberately looked at Qin Nan. It had been in Qin Nan's body all this time, watching him turn the situation around step by step and finally forcing these two geniuses into a desperate situation. It had to admit that this guy was much more pleasing to the eye than before. It didn't dislike him as much as before. In the past, when it helped Qin Nan, it was unwilling. However, this time, not only was it not unwilling, but it was also rather excited. At the very least, it wasn't useless. Seniors, please don't misunderstand. If I make a move directly, not only will I not be able to hurt Qin Huan, but I will also be kicked out. I'm not that stupid. After saying that, a smile appeared on Shi Tianjuan's face. However, even if I can't make a move on Qin Huan, can't I make a move on the chessboard of the three realms? As soon as he said that, Qin Nan suddenly had a bad premonition. The heaven-rising bell was activated by Shi Tianjun, and it let out ethereal chimes as if it was announcing the result for Qin Nan. Space-time's sacred fire burned the mortal world. Shi Tianjun formed a hand seal, and the heaven-rising bell immediately released a ray of light that entered the mortal world. In an instant, the entire chessboard of the mortal world seemed to have been ignited. Countless space-time's sacred fire burned fiercely. This is... On the training field, the master of the Blue Dome and the others narrowed their eyes. All of a sudden, they recalled the solitary Taoist's words. After the pieces are placed, the three of you can attack each other as you wish. Apart from this, you can also use other methods. However, these methods are limited to the chessboard. These words were ignored by them. because only by using the true essence of strength chess pieces would they be able to shatter the opponent's chessboard. Other methods were completely useless. Take Shi Tianjun for example. Although he possessed countless tricks, he could only obediently place his pieces one by one on this chessboard. However, Shi Tianjuan's flames were different from other methods. Not good. The Time Blade and the Emperor's body both understood the power of this flame. They subconsciously wanted to send down endless Emperor's power to destroy this time and space sacred flame, but they were instantly warned by the lone Taoist. If they attacked the time and space sacred flame, they would definitely attack the chessboard of the three realms. That was absolutely not allowed. Qin Nan's expression changed. He was completely focused on how to defeat Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing. As a result, he had completely forgotten about Shi Tianjuan's identity and strength. Time and space sacred flame. Qin Nan immediately activated his time and space sacred scripture to the maximum. The flames landed on the chess pieces in an attempt to prevent them from being affected. It's meaningless. Your flames are too weak. Shi Tianjun looked down at everything. As he mentioned, Qin Nan's space-time sacred flame was like a lone boat in the middle of a vast ocean. The slightest wave was enough to topple it. Although his time and space sacred flame was more or less effective, it still couldn't stop the overwhelming momentum. Qin Nan immediately saw the chess pieces disappearing from the chessboard one after another. The divine dragon and the god of battle that had appeared began to crumble. Time reversal. Everything had returned to an hour ago. An hour ago, there was nothing on the chessboard of the human realm. All the efforts that Qin Nan had put in earlier had all vanished. However, it wasn't only the chessboard of the human realm that was affected. The flames of the time and space sacred flame swept across the immortal realm and demon realm like a wildfire. Shi Tianjun frowned. He soon understood the reason behind it. The foundation of the three realms was actually just a chessboard. If the human realm was affected, the immortal realm and demon realm wouldn't be able to escape unscathed. However, his furrowed brows soon smoothed out. The flames swept across the chessboard. Before long, the chessboard of the three realms returned to its original state. There was not a single chess piece. Whoosh! A commotion immediately broke out in the quiet training ground. No one had expected such a shocking reversal of the situation. Is that the time and space sacred art? Time reversal? Damn, I didn't expect Shi Tianjun to become the successor of the time and space sacred temple. Sigh, what a pity. If this continued, Qin Huan would definitely win. This time, many of the peak divine emperors felt sorry for Qin Huan. They had always wanted to surpass the heavens' pride. Now that Qin Huan had done it, it naturally resonated with them. Chapter 2861. This time, there were already many peak divine emperors who felt pity for Qin Huan. The heavens chosen was a mountain that they had always wanted to surpass. Now that Qin Huan had done it, it naturally resonated with them. Ha ha ha! Zhao Wushuang, Jiang Xing, Jiang Chu, and the others were overjoyed. This game of chess was truly exciting. They did not expect the tables to turn again and again. However, this time, it was impossible for Qin Huan to turn the tables around. Now, everything had to start from the beginning. If Qin Huan continued with the dual technique layout, he would definitely not be able to defeat Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing. As heavens chosen, Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing had already experienced it once. How could they lose the second time? After all, Qin Huan's dual technique layout was not terrifying enough to suppress everything. If Qin Huan used other dual technique layouts, he would be able to surround Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing. However, Shi Tianjun would be able to use the power of spacetime to return the dual technique layout to its original state. If this continued for a long time, all of Qin Huan's chess pieces and dual technique layouts would be used up. Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing would then be able to use dual technique layouts to deal with Qin Huan. Seeing this, the Time Blade and the Emperor's body couldn't help but sigh. They returned to Qin Nan's body. Although Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing joined forces to deal with him, and Shi Tianjun even used the power of spacetime, everything was so unfair. However, there was no such thing as fairness. Many things only depended on the result. In the end, Shi Tianjun was still going to lose. Qin Huan, everything has started again. Shi Tianjun looked straight into Qin Nan's eyes. He was like a god looking at a mortal. You should have guessed the result, right? There's no need to struggle anymore. Just throw in the chess piece and admit defeat. Qin Nan clenched his fist. It was as if there was a flame in his chest. He had indeed guessed the result. However, was he going to admit defeat just like that? No. Absolutely not. Even if it was a dead end, he would still walk on it. Qin Nan waved his hand. A chess piece appeared in his hand and he placed it on the chessboard. Feudal struggle. Shi Tianjun shook his head. Since that's the case, let me see how many schemes you've come up with in those 12 hours. Shi Tianjun placed one chess piece after another. How sad. Dong Wangqing looked at Qin Nan and clicked his tongue. He then placed the chess pieces on the chessboard. In his opinion, Qin Nan was indeed lamentable, even pitiful. Originally, relying on his extremely strong martial arts talent, he was about to defeat these two heavens chosen and obtain supreme glory. But in the end, this was the result. But then again, no matter how pitiful Qin Nan was, he would not pity him, nor would he give up. Instead, he would beat him even more viciously. One by one, the chess pieces landed on the chessboard of the immortal, devil, and human realms. One after another, spells were unleashed and clashed on the chessboard. Qin Nan's second attack was completely different from the first. It was a different combination of two different spells, a different scheme. No matter what Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing did, they could not resist it. However, as Qin Nan was about to achieve victory, rolling flames swept across the three realms once again. Time gradually passed. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the three figures in the air. Qin Nan's martial arts talent was fully displayed at this moment. Each of his attacks was so stunning. Even though the cultivators on the dojo did not understand the true essence of his attacks, they could still understand how they were combined and formed by the auras. However, no matter how stunning and unbelievable it was, what welcomed Qin Nan was the blazing flames. Gradually, there was silence in the training hall. Zhao Wushuang, Saint Jiang, Jiang Chu, and the others felt that Qin Nan was being ridiculous. They felt that Qin Nan was struggling like an ant. However, even more people gradually fell silent. Could Qin Huan not guess the result? He would understand. Damn it, they're going too far. The Blue Dome Lord clenched his fists tightly, his eyes spitting fire. He did not care whether it was fair or not. He was extremely displeased with Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing's actions. If he did not teach them a lesson after this, he would not have the innate chaotic body. Li Huai, Lu Chao, and the others were also furious. However, as time passed, they saw the sweat dripping down Qin Nan's forehead. They saw Qin Nan's slightly trembling hands. They saw Qin Nan's unwilling and unconvinced gaze. Their hearts began to ache for him. If they were the ones standing on the chessboard, how would they feel now? They would also be unwilling, but despair would attack them bit by bit, eroding them bit by bit. They would also struggle, but the cold reality would continuously wear away the fighting spirit in their hearts. How unbearable was this feeling? Qin Huan, you've already done very well. Let go. Li Huai, Lu Chao, and the others could not help but shout to the void. They did not say the word, admit defeat, because they were afraid that it would hurt Qin Huan. Not only did Qin Nan not hear it, but he also chose to ignore it. When the space-time sacred fire swept across the chessboard again and everything returned to the starting point, he still stubbornly played chess pieces. Qin Huan, Li Huai, Lu Chao, and the others spoke again. However, before they could finish speaking, Jiang Hongxiu interrupted them. "Don't speak." Li Huai, Lu Chao, and the others were stunned. They turned to look at her, only to discover that although she was still expressionless, the corners of her mouth were tightly pursed. Jiang Hongxiu looked at Qin Nan's thin figure. It was as if she saw herself in the Hellfire trials. Similarly, she felt despair, powerlessness, and unwillingness. However, she would not persuade Qin Nan to let go because this was his insistence. No matter what the final result was, she would not stop him. Chapter 2862. The grayish-white flame attacked again, and landed on the mortal world. Very soon, the entire chessboard was lit up. The surprise that Qin Nan comprehended when he broke through the 9th level of the spacetime canon had become his nightmare. This was the 9th time the spacetime sacred flame was lit up. In other words, this was the 9th time he went back in time. Every time he set up a duel game, Qin Nan would need around 110 to 150 chess pieces. In other words, he had already played over 1,000 chess pieces. Moreover, all of them were different chess pieces. In those 12 hours, although he had comprehended a total of 2,000 chess pieces, not all of the chess pieces could be put to use. Moreover, in order to deal with Shi Tianjun and Dong Huangqing, Qin Nan hadn't deduced so many dual game layout. Qin Nan had only deduced 5 types of dual game layout. This was because he had placed his focus on the dual game layout. If he entered a stalemate with Shi Tianjun and Dong Huangqing, after playing 300 to 400 chess pieces, he would be able to play an extremely stunning game within a game. He would be able to erupt with unimaginable power and deal a fatal blow to his opponent. In other words, in order to deal with Shi Tianjun and Dong Huangqing, Qin Nan had come up with 4 different dual game layouts at the last moment. Although it was said to be at the last moment, it wasn't. Instead, from the moment Qin Nan didn't throw in the chess piece and admit defeat, he had already played the remaining 4 dual game layout. Taking advantage of the time when he placed down his chess pieces, he transformed the chess pieces he had comprehended into stars and continued to deduce them in his boundless sea of consciousness. It would take around 60 breaths of time for a dual game to be played. In other words, Qin Nan had used 240 breaths of time to deduce 4 different dual game layout. If Shi Tianjun and Dong Huangqing knew about this, their Dao hearts would probably be shocked. Everyone in the training grounds would definitely be shocked as well. This was because such talent in the martial Dao could already be said to be terrifying. Not to mention being the number 1 in the 5 realms, he might even be ranked at the top of the myriad realms. However, no matter how strong one's talent in the martial Dao was, there would always be a limit. No matter how fast one's thoughts were, it was impossible for one to deduce endlessly. Qin Nan had reached his limit. To be more precise, he had reached his limit since the 6th ignition of the spacetime sacred flame. However, the unwillingness in his heart and the roar in his heart caused him to erupt with power that surpassed his limits. With an unimaginable ability, he forcefully deduced the dual law matrices one after another. However, things were different now. A new game had started. Shi Tianjun and Dong Huangqing moved their chess pieces, creating boundless darkness that surged towards Qin Nan. A sense of helplessness rose continuously in his heart, as if a giant beast had opened its mouth, trying to devour his will. Qin Nan's face turned pale. This time, it wasn't just his hands that were shaking. His entire body was shaking. On the surface, the martial battle chess would not injure the opponent in the slightest. But in reality, when playing chess, one would put all of one's mental energy into it. Once the chess game collapsed, one's mental energy would completely collapse. Deduction, 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 a new dual law matrices. The unyielding will in Qin Nan's bones was completely stimulated as he continuously roared in his heart. Thoughts and inspirations kept appearing in his mind. Those stars also kept on dancing, as if they were going to form a new diagram. However, he didn't have time. He only paused for a breath of time, and Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing had already moved 2 chess pieces. When he paused for 2 breaths of time, Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing had already moved 5 chess pieces. A wave of profound intent spread out from the immortal world and demon world. Qin Nan subconsciously moved a chess piece. If he didn't move his chess piece, even if he thought of a new dual law matrices, he would still lose for sure. That one again? When Shi Tianjun saw Qin Nan move 3 chess pieces in a row, he immediately recalled a chess game. He said indifferently, "Seems like you can't think of a new dual law matrices. To be honest, the fact that you were able to come up with 9 dual law matrices has already shocked me." Dong Wangqing didn't say anything. His expression was calm as he moved one chess piece after another. He already knew what kind of chess game his opponent was going to play. If he still couldn't win, then it would be too embarrassing. The chess game started again. A battle of techniques. Amidst the rumbling sounds, Qin Nan's dual law matrices appeared again. However, this time it was no longer breathtaking and dazzling. It was because all of its secrets had been completely seen through. The immortal world struck with lightning punishment while the demon world surged with cold snow. The light of the entire mortal world was instantly suppressed. Qin Nan's forehead was dripping with sweat. Even now, he still didn't stop. He picked up chess pieces and moved them into the mortal world. Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing didn't say anything. They just looked at this scene indifferently. Struggle, continue to struggle, and in the end lose after struggling. The training grounds were already completely silent. Zhao Wushuang, Jiang Xing, Jiang Chu, and the others wanted to ridicule Qin Nan for overestimating himself and then ridicule Jiang Hongxiu. However, they suddenly realized that the training ground wasn't just silent. The atmosphere had already become heavy. There was a silent thing spreading. Zhao Wushuang, Jiang Xing, and Jiang Chu sneered in their hearts. They weren't stupid. They naturally understood that Qin Nan's stubborn struggle and the chess pieces that were getting harder and harder to move had imperceptibly impacted everyone here. However, they were rather disdainful. What was the point of such a struggle? How could the cries of mortals be transmitted to the 9 heavens? The chess game was still continuing. After the dual law matrices, the 3 sides placed more than 100 chess pieces and performed all kinds of technique. Qin Nan's chess pieces were getting harder and harder. It was as if he was no longer playing chess pieces, but an incomparably heavy mountain. He had to use all of his strength to barely move them. Chapter 2863. On the other hand, in the immortal realm and demon realm, an invisible force was brewing in the void. Among the powerful chess pieces, there were many invisible reactions. In the previous game, they were defending against Qin Nan. But now, they no longer needed to do so. They could easily play the dual game that they had constructed. In the end, they would give Qin Nan a sure kill move. Pa, pa, pa. The sound of chess pieces landing echoed in the surroundings like the sound of Tao. After some time, Qin Nan raised his right hand out of habit. However, when he raised his hand in the air, there was no godly light gathering at his fingertips. Instead, it was as if his arm was frozen in place. For the first time, there was a hint of confusion in his eyes. What should he do with this move? What should he play? Shi Tianjun smiled. He had expected this to happen. The more the ant struggled, the faster it would lose its energy. In the end, it would be exhausted. Without a chess piece to play, there was nothing to play. However, Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing did not show any mercy to the ant, nor did they give him any time to struggle. They continued to play chess pieces at a shocking speed. Bang! Suddenly, a shocking aura rose in the immortal realm and demon realm. The formation of Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing's game. Even though they were not setting up a dual spell formation and were using more pieces, the aura of their dual spell formation was stronger than Qin Nan's dual spell formation. It was because each of their chess pieces contained the true essence of power. Countless tribulation lightnings surged in the immortal realm. A strand of sword intent rushed into the tribulation lightning and merged into one, forming a tribulation lightning sword. It floated in the air, causing the living beings to tremble. It was as if it was the fury of the immortal realm. It was as if it had turned into a sword and slashed all the other worlds. In the demon realm, godly light soared, forming a majestic divine nation. Rays of sacred light appeared in the divine nation, turning into the divine nation's ruler, divine nation's saint, divine nation's warrior, and so on. The demon realm trembled again. The divine nation instantly turned into a demon nation, emitting a monstrous demonic aura. It was going to crush everything with the power of the nation. Lose. Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing looked indifferent. The power of the law completely erupted. In the training hall, Li Huai, Lu Chao, Jiang Xiaoya, and the others looked at Qin Nan's frail back. They could almost instantly feel his pain and confusion. Their hearts ached, and they didn't dare to continue watching, averting their gazes. It's an honorable defeat. Many of the peak divine emperors closed their eyes and sighed. Although Qin Huan didn't overturn this sure-lose chess game in the end, when news of the martial battle chess spread today, Qin Huan's name would definitely shine in the sky above the 5 realms, causing everyone to raise their eyebrows. The most talented person in the 5 realms. This could be considered a form of consolation. At this instant, time and space seemed to have frozen, and everything became extremely slow. Qin Nan's eyes were no longer confused. He could see the attacks from the immortal realm and the demon realm. He also knew the outcome of the game. He was going to lose. A thick sense of bitterness instantly spread throughout his entire soul. He didn't know what it meant to lose honorably, but he knew that he had lost this time. His chess pieces could no longer be placed. Even if they were to be placed, he wouldn't be able to withstand the terrifying attacks. Qin Nan raised his right hand and was about to put it down subconsciously. It was meaningless. No. A roar suddenly exploded in his heart like a clap of thunder. This was his own decision. It wasn't meaningless. He didn't have a single chess piece to place down. Just like what Jiang Hongxiu said, this was his persistence, his stubbornness. Even if he only had one last chess piece, and it was a meaningless chess piece, he would still place it down. He didn't know what it meant to lose honorably, but he knew that he would fight until the last moment. Boom! Suddenly, a muffled explosion resounded from the Black Lotus platform, and it caused Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing's expressions to instantly freeze. Everyone in the training hall was also stunned. Only Daoist Gu, who was hiding in the dark, had a glint in his eyes. At this moment, it was as if an ancient profound door had opened, and an endless mysterious aura instantly filled the entire place. Swoosh! A beam of light seemed to have shot out from the profound door. The speed of light was originally extremely fast, but this beam of light seemed to be extremely slow. Everyone could clearly see that it came from an endless mysterious place and slowly hit Qin Nan's body. Qin Nan suddenly realized that the scenery around him had changed. It was as if a huge hand had reached out from nowhere and grabbed his mind, lifting him up from the ground and rushing out of the world under his feet. Not only that, he also broke through the void, broke through the river of stars, and arrived at the absolute peak in the blink of an eye. He looked down and saw that the myriad of worlds was like a supreme map that unfolded in the eternal darkness. He was still rising, and the myriad of worlds became smaller and smaller, dimmer and dimmer. In the end, he couldn't even see the myriad of worlds. He came to the depths of the boundless void. There was only chaos, darkness, and silence. Suddenly, he saw a beam of light. This beam of light was incomparably illusory. It was like it was real and illusory at the same time. It was hidden in the chaos and appeared at other times. It was as if chaos and darkness couldn't trap it. This is... Qin Nan was stunned. Suddenly, the beam of light shattered. Qin Nan saw himself when he was just born. He saw the happy expression on his face when he picked up his first martial skill when he was 3 years old. He saw himself walking unsteadily, but his eyes were shining as he looked at the big brothers who were practicing martial arts. He saw himself picking up his first saber, learning his first martial skill seriously, creating his first martial skill after racking his brains. He saw himself cultivating his first divine ability, his first emperor art, his first immortal art, his first. Chapter 2864. The scene changed all of a sudden. It was his first martial talent duel. As soon as he left the clan, Xiao Qingxue gave him a manual of mystical 8 steps, allowing him to have a bet with Elder Bai Heng. The second martial talent duel took place in the Xianling clan, where he competed against a genius disciple to test his martial talent. The third, fourth, and fifth martial talent duel. He gradually moved from a remote place to the center of the continent, to the center of the 9 heavens immortal realm, emitting a brilliant glow. Regardless of whether it was the body-tempering realm, the martial monarch realm, the 9 heavens supreme realm, or even the supreme highness realm, his martial talent was always stronger than his opponents. He had won every martial talent duel. Even when he was facing 2 of the top geniuses of the 5 realms, even though he was on the verge of losing the game, everyone knew that his martial talent was still better than theirs. What is martial talent to you? A cold laugh came out of nowhere and rang out in the endless darkness. Do you really love martial arts? No, you don't. Your so-called love for martial arts is only because you are blessed with exceptional martial arts talent that can help you achieve victory after victory. You are not addicted to martial talent but the thrill of winning. If your martial talent was only average, even worse than an ordinary person, would you still love martial talent? Each and every word was like a bolt of lightning falling from the sky. Following this, a huge tide appeared in the darkness, devouring Qin Nan completely. After some time, Qin Nan opened his eyes amid a series of screams. His eyes were filled with a blank look. Why did you sleep for so long? A grumbling voice could be heard. Qin Nan turned around and saw Qin Chongkong, who used to be a disciple of the Qin clan. Qin Nan scanned his surroundings. He was currently in a room, the same room that he had stayed in since he was young in the Qin clan. Qin Nan felt a headache. He had an inexplicable feeling in his heart that he seemed to have forgotten a lot of things, a lot of very important things. Sigh, you brat, don't be so dejected. Although you have only awakened a first-grade Huang-ranked martial talent, you can still enter politics. Now you are an official of the Dixia Empire and have a very high status. I even heard that when the prefect of the Dixia Empire was enraged, several Xiantian experts were directly arrested. Qin Chongkong consoled. First-grade yellow-class martial Dao talent? Politics? Qin Nan said with a blank expression, Chongkong, what are you saying? Why can't I understand? F***ck, don't you know anything? Did you suffer such a huge blow? Qin Chongkong was shocked for a long time, then sighed and said, Fine, I will talk to you. You must relax and don't take it too seriously. After listening to Qin Chongkong ramble for more than half an hour, Qin Nan finally recalled. He was the young master of the Qin clan in Linshui City. He was currently 16 years old and had awakened his martial talent yesterday. In the Kanglan continent, not everyone could cultivate. Everyone had to awaken their martial talent at the age of 16. Martial talent was divided into 4 levels: Heaven, Earth, Profound, and Yellow. Heaven was the highest, Yellow was the lowest, and each level was further divided into 10 grade. The higher one's martial talent, the higher the level of cultivation methods one could comprehend. The faster one's cultivation speed, the higher one's achievements, and the stronger one's battle prowess. The lower one's talent, the more limited one's achievements were. Generally speaking, as long as one awakened a second-grade Huang-ranked martial talent, they would be able to comprehend some low-level cultivation methods and barely be able to cultivate. However, a first-grade Huang-ranked martial talent was no different from a mortal. It was impossible to comprehend any cultivation methods. In short, on the path of cultivation, he was a pure waste. He didn't even have the qualifications to cultivate. Qin Nan felt a burst of bitterness in his heart. Since he was young, he had always yearned to cultivate. Countless times, he had fantasized about one day becoming a great cultivator and moving unhindered in the Kanglan continent. Yet, in the end, this was the result. Qin Nan violently coughed twice. His chest felt a little stuffy. This was his old problem. When he was 10 years old, he was unlucky enough to be struck by heavenly lightning. After luckily surviving, his body became weaker and weaker. "Oh you!" Qin Chongkong patted Qin Nan's back and said in a low voice, "Around tomorrow, the disciples of our clan will have to go to the martial palace in the city to study. I won't be able to accompany you. You should take it easy. It's best if you go to the literature palace tomorrow." In the Kanglan continent, apart from cultivation, there was another path to take. That was to learn literature. In the future, one could enter politics and govern the great Xia Empire. In the Kanglan continent, once an official reached a certain level, their status would not be any lower than a great cultivator's. Furthermore, after reaching the 3rd grade, the great Xia Empire would use all kinds of natural treasures to nourish one's body, allowing one to live a long life. "Don't worry. I will go. You can go ahead with your work. I'm fine." Qin Nan nodded his head. Qin Chongkong chatted with him for a while. After confirming that there was no problem with his mental state, he turned around and left. Qin Nan walked out of the courtyard. In the distance, the martial training field was bustling with noise. He couldn't help but fall into a daze. Soon after, he thought of his current situation and couldn't help but sigh. He still wanted to cultivate. However, with a first-grade Huang-ranked martial talent, how was he going to cultivate? Furthermore, the Qin family had a rule. Once a disciple reached the age of 18, they had to be independent from the clan. As the young master of the clan, if he continued to stay in the clan and didn't contribute anything to the clan, then his father would lose face and become a laughingstock. He could only go to the literature palace. The next morning, most of the young disciples of the Qin family went to the martial palace in a grandiose manner. Qin Nan, along with 2 or 3 other disciples who were less talented, or who were passionate about politics, went to the literature palace. The literature palace was full of classes. From morning to night they had to study for 16 hours. First, they would study the most basic 4 books and 5 classics of the great Xia Empire. Then, they would study more advanced content. Qin Nan studied for an entire day. When he returned to his room, he was already dizzy. He washed his face, and after he was a little more awake, he carefully took out an old and tattered ancient book. This was a gift his father gave him when he was 15 years old. It was a high-grade martial skill called the Thunder Crash Saber Technique. There weren't many words in this book, only a few thousand. Qin Nan could already recite them backwards, but for some reason, everything in this book was like a heavenly book. He still couldn't understand the meaning within. Qin Nan knew that there was no point in continuing to read like this, but for some reason, he couldn't help but flip to the first page and read the incomparably familiar contents word by word. He gradually let out a breath, and his body relaxed a lot. Chapter 2865. Time passed quickly, and 5 months later, Qin Chongkong sent him a letter. The letter stated that he had cultivated a profound level cultivation technique, and was now at the 5th layer of body tempering realm. He was about to head to the Mystic Spirit sect to participate in the disciple assessment. Qin Nan was envious. That was the Xianling clan, the holy land of martial arts that he had yearned for since he was a child. He made up his mind that even if he didn't have the chance to become a disciple of the Xianling clan, he must find a chance to go and take a look. Unknowingly, 2 years had passed. The heavens had closed a door for him, but at the same time opened another one for him. Although he did not have much talent in martial arts, he was quite talented in the path of politics. He was valued by the palace master of the One Palace. Everyone in the family was very gratified and had high expectations for him. Just like that, he studied during the day and continued to study the martial technique at night. Although it wasn't the life he wanted, he could still get by. However, good things didn't last long. One night, the palace master of the One Palace had an urgent matter to discuss with him, but he happened to find him concentrating on studying the martial technique. This matter immediately caused an uproar. All the scholars in the Palace of Literature were whispering, pointing and gossiping about him. When the Qin family heard about it, the Qin family's patriarch and the others immediately rushed to the One Palace. The elders took turns to reprimand Qin Nan. Qin Tian's face showed a trace of exhaustion. He said, Nan, I know that in your heart you want to practice martial arts more, but you have to face reality. Father is already old, and all my hopes are on you. Qin Nan was ashamed. He took out the martial technique and burned it with fire. Everyone was satisfied, but Qin Nan's heart was empty. Year after year, Qin Nan quickly participated in the imperial examination. His results were not bad, and he directly became a county magistrate. After that, Qin Nan's official career was prosperous. In less than 15 years, he had become a prefecture magistrate and was in charge of a prefecture. He had a high position and power. Later, a natural disaster happened to the world. Qin Nan was far-sighted and issued various measures, causing the prefecture to have good weather and almost no losses. This made the emperor of the Great Xia Empire very happy, and he privately expressed that he wanted to marry the 13th princess to him. As soon as the Qin family heard this, they immediately took turns doing Qin Nan's work. Furthermore, they could not disobey the emperor's order, so they married the 13th princess. As the years passed, Qin Nan rose in rank step by step. The 13th princess also gave birth to children for him. Qin Nan quickly became a rising star in the Great Xia Empire. Everyone believed that in less than 10 years, Qin Nan would be able to become a first-rank official, second only to one person and above all others. However, no one noticed that Qin Nan had not smiled for a long time. Countless people envied Qin Nan, including Qin Chongkong, who occasionally sent a letter to express his envy. Status, reputation, power, money, and so on, Qin Nan had it all. In everyone's eyes, Qin Nan was undoubtedly happy. However, Qin Tian did not know, the 13th princess did not know, and even his children did not know. Every time midnight came, Qin Nan looked at the night sky and only felt empty in his heart. What was the difference between the current him and a walking corpse? Not long after, Qin Nan ushered in his 50th birthday. In order to celebrate his birthday, the emperor personally ordered the Ministry of Rites to organize a banquet. On this day, countless officials and nobles, including many experts, all rushed to Qin Nan's residence. However, when all the guests arrived, someone opened the door to Qin Nan's room, only to find that there was only a letter left in the room. This was a farewell letter left by Qin Nan. In the letter, he wrote, "Father, my passion has always been martial arts. Heaven and earth did not give me a chance, but I still love it. You raised me, and the Qin family has treated me well. I have no way to repay you. I can only study hard and help the Qin family bit by bit. Until today, I feel that I've done enough. 13th Princess, you are my wife, and you have given birth to my children. I've let you down this time. I beg you to forgive me this time. If I don't go to the other world myself, I will regret it for the rest of my life, and I won't be able to rest in peace. Everything in the family will be left to you. I won't take a single cent, nor take a single cent. No one had expected the future minister of the great Xia Empire, who only had a first-grade Huang-ranked martial talent, would choose to pursue martial arts. In an instant, the emperor was enraged, the ministers sighed, and the Qin family felt a great pain in their hearts. Everyone thought that Qin Nan had gone mad. He had actually abandoned such a good career to pursue that impossible martial path. However, they did not know that when Qin Nan carried his luggage and walked into the distance, his face was filled with a sincere smile. Despite the fact that his hair was already turning white. After a few months of wandering, Qin Nan arrived at a city of cultivators in the lower district. He had no cultivation, thus he was at the bottom of the city. He had no choice but to start a small business to support himself. Bitter. Everything was bitter. As a mortal, he was greatly ostracized and bullied in such a city. However, his heart was filled with satisfaction, and he was satisfied every day. As the days passed, his hair had completely turned white, and his body was hunched over. In the past few years, he had received quite a number of martial arts, both low-ranked and middle-ranked. He could memorize every single one of them. However, he still could not comprehend them, nor was he able to cultivate them. He was still an ordinary person. Not only that, he had heard that the Martial Serendipity Pavilion had been opened recently, and that there was a rare artifact that could alter one's destiny. He immediately went there. However, how could an ordinary person acquire the rare artifact? Not only did he fail to acquire the rare artifact, he was severely injured and almost killed by someone. However, the person did not pursue the matter further as he was an old man, and only gave him a slash. After returning, he tried his best to treat the slash, but Qin Nan was infected with other diseases, which were quite serious. Qin Nan knew that he did not have much time left. On this particular day, as usual, he went to the same street. However, as he was about to set up his stall, a voice could be heard. "Sir, are you Qin Nan?" Qin Nan raised his head and discovered that the person before him was none other than Qin Chongkong. So many years had passed, but Qin Chongkong was still a middle-aged man, unlike him who was approaching old age. If he was still the new genius of the great Xia Empire, he would most likely look the same now. The two returned to a dilapidated residence and brewed a pot of tea. Qin Chongkong glanced at his childhood friend with a complicated expression. "Oh you, why were you so stubborn in the past? Why did you insist on pursuing the martial world?" Qin Nan was about to explain when he felt a sharp pain in his chest, causing him to cough violently. "Sigh, look at yourself, what kind of life are you living now? What's so good about the martial world, why are you so stubborn?" Qin Chongkong patted his shoulder and said, "You've been through so many years, are you regretting it now?" Qin Nan shook his head and said with a hoarse voice, "I don't regret it." No regrets? You're living such a lowly life with not much time left, and you still don't regret it? Qin Chongkong was startled. "Yeah, I don't regret it at all." Qin Nan glanced at the sky with a complicated expression before a smile appeared on his face. "It's a pity that I haven't learned a single martial art after so many years. Chongkong, I hope you can take my share and continue to cultivate." Qin Nan's aura gradually weakened as he spoke, before returning to normal in the end. Qin Chongkong stared at him with a blank expression. He discovered that the smile on Qin Nan's face was still as brilliant as before. Chapter 2866. Dong. Qin Nan suddenly woke up from his daze. He was still standing in the endless darkness, and the mysterious light was still shining in front of him. All kinds of memories immediately surged into his mind like a tide. His identity, everything that he had experienced, everything just now was just an illusion? Qin Nan muttered to himself. The illusion just now was too real, so real that he had forgotten everything. What will you do if your martial arts talent is insufficient? The cold voice asked again in the darkness. So what if my talent is insufficient? I will definitely do my best. Qin Nan answered almost subconsciously. In the illusion, he had done exactly that. What will you do if your martial arts talent is extraordinary? The cold voice continued to question, and its tone became even harsher. Qin Nan came back to his senses, and his eyes shone brightly. His voice was like a large bell, and it resounded in the darkness. Even if my talent is extraordinary, I will still do my best to comprehend higher techniques and walk further on the path of martial arts. I will definitely not let him down. Since I am passionate about it, it doesn't matter if my talent is strong or weak. No matter what kind of resistance there is, I will still walk on this path. I will definitely not regret it. In the darkness, countless claps of thunder sounded. The mysterious light suddenly increased by countless times, and it completely engulfed Qin Nan's mind. At the same time, in the training hall, everyone was shocked by this scene. What's going on? What happened to Qin Huan's body? The Blue Dome Master and Li Huai couldn't help but look at each other. Such a phenomenon made the two of them think of the situation at the heavenly steel of sun and moon. Could it be that the huge pressure from Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing made him break through the shackles and awaken his godly body? The two of them had the same thought at the same time. The two of them were just feeling happy, but they quickly thought of the current situation, and their hearts sank. If one of them awakened his godly body during the battle, there would definitely be a high possibility that he would be able to turn the situation around. But now they were playing martial chess. Even if he awakened his godly body, the final result still couldn't be changed. On the Lotus platform, Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing regained their senses. Their eyes were filled with complicated emotions. They didn't know what was going on with Qin Nan, but they were certain that he was in the midst of a breakthrough. This guy's talent is not ordinary. The two of them could not help but think. Qin Huan, so what if you broke through at the last minute? In today's martial chess match, you are still powerless to reverse the situation. You will definitely lose. Shi Tianjun let out a thunderous roar. He used an ancient ability in an attempt to use his voice to interrupt Qin Nan's state of enlightenment and prevent him from breaking through. Boom! Boom! The sword of tribulation thunder and the divine kingdom of the demonic Tao rushed out from the chessboard of the immortal and demonic realms. With monstrous power, they rushed to the chessboard of the mortal realm in the blink of an eye. The terrifying power was about to destroy the entire mortal realm. Just at this moment, Qin Nan's eyes suddenly snapped open. A divine light seemed to bloom between heaven and earth. The chess piece in his hand suddenly fell to the ground. The chess pieces on the chessboard of the mortal realm came to life. There seemed to be an invisible thread connecting all the chess pieces together, turning them into a brand new existence. Bang! A magnificent mountain rose from the mortal realm and blocked the two terrifying attacks with brute force. This! Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing's eyes widened. Qin Nan had already played the dual game of moves, but now Qin Nan was using the chess piece to play the triple game of moves. On top of that, the power of the triple game of moves had merged into a brand new martial art. He still managed to come up with such an ingenious move at this stage? Shi Tianjuan's heart was shaken, but he quickly reacted. At this moment, his will had reached its peak. Either way, he had to defeat Qin Nan today and rob Qin Nan's partner of the exquisite succession. It did not matter how outstanding Qin Nan's martial talent was, or what kind of ingenious move he had come up with, there was no way he would stand a chance. However, at that instant, a shocking change took place inside Qin Nan's body. A brilliant red glow burst out from his body. The godly glow that was cast down from the sky resonated with one another in the rift. Everyone clearly sensed a tremendous force pouring into Qin Nan's body. Qin Nan's body began to change tremendously. His aura skyrocketed too. In the end, it felt like a certain threshold had been broken. A mystical aura burst out from Qin Nan's body and shook the surroundings. Countless figures immediately appeared in the surrounding void. There were humans, demons, immortals, demons, gods, Buddhas, and all sorts of other existences. Their appearances were blurry, and they were all sitting cross-legged, uttering all sorts of sounds. It felt like the tribes of the heavens were speaking and leaving their successions. In addition to that, the origin of the gods formed by the Xiantian martial flesh floating above the immortal palace began to vibrate vigorously and let out a crisp chime as if it had been summoned. If it weren't for the invisible force restraining it, it would have gone straight into Qin Nan's body. Taoist Gu, who had been secretly watching this scene, suddenly stood up, his face full of shock. Xiantian. Martial flesh. Chapter 2867. At the same time, on the training ground, when the Blue Dome Lord saw this, he suddenly thought of something and exclaimed in surprise, "First light descends from the heavens, preaching the Tao to all races. Shed the immortal body and transform into a martial Tao true body. No wonder this guy's martial Tao talent is so terrifying. He has a connate martial body." The words served as a thunderous roar, shocking everyone on the dojo. Their faces were filled with astonishment. No one had expected that Qin Nan would awaken a divine body at this moment. Moreover, it was a connate martial body. Although they did not know the specific abilities of a connate martial body, they had heard of its characteristics before. Legend had it that after this divine body was awakened, it was different from ordinary divine bodies. It would not increase one's combat strength tremendously. From this point of view, the awakening of the connate martial body did not seem to have much effect. However, legend had it that the connate martial body was the only one among the 100 divine bodies that had a chance of transforming into one of the 10 connate martial bodies. It was also because of this that among the 100 divine bodies, only the connate martial body had the word connate. Of course, this was just a legend. Even if it was true, it was extremely difficult to advance to one of the 10 connate martial bodies. However, at least there was hope for the connate martial body. It was impossible for the exquisite divine body, ancient treasure divine body, and so on. Connate martial body. Connate martial body. I see. Li Huai and Lu Chao were in a daze as they muttered to themselves. After a while, the two of them suddenly became excited and could not help but shout, "We have a chance! Hongxiu, we have a chance!" Jiang Xiaoya and the rest realized the crux of the matter. They were excited and overwhelmed with emotions. After the awakening of the connate martial body, Qin Huan's martial Tao talent would definitely increase tremendously. Moreover, the connate martial body would definitely have all sorts of incredible abilities. He might even be able to win. Jiang Hongxiu looked at Qin Nan's godlike figure and could not help but smile faintly. It was like 100 flowers blooming. At the Hellfire Pass, she had held on to that slim chance of survival. At the Divine Martial Pass, she had also held on to that slim chance. At the same time, on the Lotus platform, although Shi Tianjun and Donghuang Qing were both very experienced and knew a lot of secrets, the appearance of Qin Nan in front of them made them feel that Qin Nan had awakened his innate martial body. However, they didn't know that Qin Nan had awakened his innate martial body. "I really didn't expect that you would make such a huge breakthrough at such a crucial moment. However, this will only make you feel more despair," Shi Tianjun shouted. He activated the space-time cannon and the heaven-ascending bell rang. The space-time sacred flame swept out again. The chessboard of the 3 realms returned to 0. Shi Tianjun and Donghuang Qing immediately placed down their chess pieces. However, Qin Nan didn't move at all because he was currently in an incomparably profound state. His body felt like it was in an incomparably warm ocean, and his entire body felt extremely comfortable. His blood, bones, 5 viscera, 6 bowels, and so on were all undergoing astonishing changes. Most importantly, his soul was bathing in the mysterious divine light and undergoing a huge transformation. Shwa. Suddenly, a scene appeared in Qin Nan's mind. It was actually the 99,999 chess pieces of the essence of strength that had appeared once again. Qin Nan's heart moved. His powerful will was like a huge net that covered the sky and earth, enveloping the chess pieces. When Qin Nan was comprehending the chess pieces of the essence of strength, the process was like a mortal moving a mountain. The process was extremely difficult and slow. This was especially so for the chess pieces of the essence of strength that were more powerful. They contained boundless profoundness that made him feel like he was looking at flowers in a fog. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't see the truth. But now the fog had completely dispersed. With a single glance, he understood the profound mysteries within, thoroughly comprehending them. The most shocking thing was that even though he was in such an inconceivable state of comprehension, his mind wasn't completely immersed in it. It was as if his mind was divided into two. One part was in the chess pieces, and the other part was in the outside world, watching Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing play chess again. Qin Nan subconsciously raised his right hand, and the divine light chess pieces condensed on his fingertips. The chess pieces that he had comprehended suddenly appeared in his mind. They were shaped like stars, and now they seemed to have a life of their own. They flickered on their own, and in the vast darkness, they turned into many star diagrams. Whoosh! In an instant there seemed to be flames flashing past, and there seemed to be lightning flashing past. A brand new duel game appeared naturally in Qin Nan's mind without any thought or deduction. Qin Nan placed his chess piece. The duel game in his mind was still changing. When he placed his second chess piece, the duel game instantly transformed into a triple game. Moreover, he only needed 108 chess pieces. Qin Nan's mind, energy, and spirit changed completely. Just a moment ago, he had walked into a dead end. His chess skills had been exhausted, and he was in a sorry state. But now, he was calm and confident. It was as if he had turned into the son of the martial Tao, and he had all sorts of profoundness of the martial Tao at his fingertips. Qin Nan played chess step by step. Many wonderful ideas burst forth in his mind, making him happy. It was as if the veil that covered this world had been completely lifted. In just a short while, the triple game appeared in the mortal world, causing the immortal world and demon world to tremble. Shi Tianjuan's expression changed. He quickly executed the space-time cannon and reset the chessboard. Qin Nan placed his first chess piece. The faint smile on his face made Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing's hearts sink at the same time. Chapter 2868. Time passed by slowly. One after another, amazing and marvelous games were played in the mortal world. Everyone felt that the game was full of vitality and vigor. In comparison, the immortal world and demon world were dim and dull. It was as if the immortal world and the demon world did not have a successor. If it wasn't for the grayish-white flame, the immortal world and demon world would have been destroyed and turned into nothingness. Everyone in the training ground could see that Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing were sweating profusely. Unknowingly, their breathing had become rough and heavy. They were also exhausting their energy. Even though they were playing the same chess piece in every game and forming the same defensive technique, they had to expend some of their energy every time a chess piece was placed. Especially Shi Tianjun. He had to activate the heaven ascending bell and continuously cast the time and space sacred flame. The consumption of his energy was even greater. Now, they're both exhausting their energy. If Shi Tianjuan's time and space energy runs out first, they'll definitely lose. If Qin Huan runs out of energy and can't think of a new game, Qin Huan will definitely lose. Qin Huan has just awakened the innate martial body. His martial Dao talent must have increased by a lot. In addition, the innate martial body must have some mysterious power related to the martial Dao. Qin Huan will most likely win. Although Shi Tianjuan's cultivation is profound, I feel that Qin Huan has a higher chance of winning. The peak divine emperors on the training ground spoke one after another. Qin Nan's performance had lifted their spirit. It was as if they could see a mountain that would never fall was about to crumble. The chess game was intense and the battle was endless. The wills of the immortal world, demon world and human world clashed in the void. Not long after 3 more rounds, Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing both showed signs of defeat. Both of their faces were faintly pale. Both of them felt weak and powerless within their bodies. In comparison, Qin Nan was calm and composed. The aura that he emitted from his body seemed to have become more solid and magnificent with each game. Everyone knew that Qin Nan had received a huge boost, but they didn't know that Qin Nan's improvement could only be described as terrifying. For example, some ancient divine trees were blessed with power from the heavens and nourished by the boundless earth. Thus, as long as they took root in the heavens and earth, their power would be endless and boundless, and they would never be exhausted. Right now, Qin Nan seemed to have taken root in the martial Dao. There was no end to it. Furthermore, the various scenarios that he had deduced in his mind were a form of enjoyment and also a form of improvement. Now we just need to see who can outlast the other, right? A smile appeared on Shi Tianjuan's face. However, everyone felt that his smile was a little difficult and cold. Qin Huan, you also control the time and space sacred fire. Don't you know that the time and space sacred fire has another very important function besides being able to reverse time? As soon as he finished speaking, the space-time sacred flame lit up again. However, this time, the flames spread all over his body, causing his body to undergo space-time reversal. In the blink of an eye, Shi Tianjuan's aura returned to its initial state. It was as vast as the ocean and as majestic as the mountain. Dong Wangqing, from now on, you should try your best to preserve your strength. Drag it out until he runs out of strength. Shi Tianjun shouted sternly, as long as you defeat Qin Huan, I will give you a great opportunity. The space-time sacred flame belonged to the energy in his body. Thus, it could burn in his body and change his condition. However, he couldn't help Dong Wangqing because these methods could only be used on the chessboard. Without Dong Wangqing, even if Qin Nan ran out of strength, with the many scenarios that Qin Nan had grasped, Shi Tianjun wouldn't be able to defeat him. Moreover, his space-time sacred flame couldn't be used to recover his strength endlessly. Thus, the one who would be exhausted to death would be him. Ha ha ha! Dong Wangqing suddenly burst out laughing. I don't want this opportunity of yours. However, I will definitely be able to hold on until then. As soon as he finished speaking, the energy in his body surged, causing his condition to recover significantly. Although he hadn't returned to his peak state, he seemed to have recovered around 60 to 70% of his strength. An uproar immediately broke out in the dojo. They didn't expect Shi Tianjun to have such an unbelievable method. That's good, that's good. Shi Tianjun has recovered to his peak state. Judging from his performance just now, he should be able to backtrack at least 20 times. Moreover, I'm afraid that Shi Tianjun can still recover his strength. If he can hold on for 2 or 3 times, he will be able to backtrack at least 60 times. Even if Qin Nan has awakened the innate martial body, he is still a mere ruler realm cultivator. He won't be able to hold on until then. We can definitely exhaust him to death. Zhao Wushuang, Jiang Chu, Jiang Xing, and the others were startled. It was as if they had seen a ray of light in the boundless darkness, as if they had grabbed a tree from drowning. However, at this moment, Qin Nan burst out laughing and said, "Sure Tianjun, Dongwang Qing, you are mistaken about one thing. I am not trying to exhaust your strength." Sure Tianjun and Dongwang Qing's eyes glittered. The former frowned and said, "What did you say?" If he wasn't trying to exhaust their strength, what was he trying to do? "Since this is a duel, then I will use my duel to defeat you fair and square, instead of exhausting you to death." A domineering aura burst out from Qin Nan's body. This time, he didn't make the first move. Instead, he flicked his finger, causing streams of space-time sacred flames to land on the chessboard. There were a total of 99 streams of space-time sacred flames that looked like blooming flowers. "This is..." Sure Tianjun and Dongwang Qing were startled. Qin Nan raised his right hand and placed his chess pieces. Each of the chess pieces landed on the streams of space-time sacred flames as if they had merged with the flames. "Did you really think that you would be able to block my space-time sacred flame and not be affected by it?" Sure Tianjun seemed to have seen through Qin Nan's intention. He said with disdain, "Naive." Chapter 2869. After all, he had cultivated the spacetime canon to the 13th layer. The spacetime sacred fire had already undergone a fundamental change. Coupled with the fact that he had refined the Ascension Bell, his current spacetime sacred fire was comparable to the 14th layer of the spacetime canon. Qin Nan had only just cultivated the spacetime sacred fire, so it was still extremely insignificant. Even though it was connected to the chess pieces, it could not stop him at all. Qin Nan directly ignored him. He continued to place chess pieces on the strands of spacetime sacred fire. Technique after technique gradually coalesced. Before long, Qin Nan was about to place his final chess piece and fuse it with the last strand of spacetime sacred fire. Sure Tianjun was already prepared. He sneered, "You've failed at the last step." Roiling flames swept over once more, enveloping the entire three realms. The chess pieces placed on the immortal and demon worlds all vanished. The chessboard returned to normal. The power of spacetime also wreaked havoc in the human world, attempting to reverse everything. However, at this moment a shocking sight occurred. The chess pieces placed by Qin Nan actually released strands of gray light. They radiated with the power of spacetime and were not affected by the flames at all. "This is..." Sure Tianjun immediately felt like he had been struck by lightning. He was filled with disbelief. They had actually blocked his spacetime sacred fire? What was going on? "I've been thinking about a question the entire time. What kind of power in the world is unaffected by spacetime? Based on my speculations, there are at least several dozen powers that have already surpassed spacetime. I don't know about the other powers, but I do know one thing. Only the power of spacetime can guarantee that it will not be affected by the power of spacetime. My spacetime sacred fire was unable to stop you at all earlier because your spacetime sacred fire was too much stronger than mine. There was a difference in level between us. However, what I'm using now is a spacetime technique. I've comprehended 99 chess pieces and used them to form their own technique. Afterwards, they completely fused with the power of the spacetime sacred fire to form a pure technique. Your flames can make all things turn back time, but they definitely can't reverse spacetime." Qin Nan's words rang out like the great bell of the Grand Tao. He raised his right hand and a chess piece with a surging aura gathered at his fingertip. "Now, let's combine the 5 arts into a dual spell formation. When the 2 games are connected, they can form a killing move." Qin Nan placed the chess piece on the board. The auras of the 99 pieces of Qi immediately connected with one another. The spells began to merge with one another, transforming into a new and powerful existence. Break. 2 saber lights that resembled chaos immediately slashed out from the human world. These 2 slashes seemed to have accumulated the power of the entire world, as if they had gathered the power of all mortals to reach an unimaginable level. In the blink of an eye, they slashed into the depths of the immortal realm and demon realm. Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing's eyes narrowed. They subconsciously wanted to do something, but when they raised their hands, they couldn't do anything. Boom! Boom! Following two deafening explosions, the immortal and demon realms shattered into countless jade shards that flew in all directions. In the blink of an eye, he rushed into the training ground. Every jade shard shattered into pieces once again, turning into countless golden light dots that drifted down. Everyone on the training ground immediately felt a surging and mystical pure force entering their bodies. We won. The training ground immediately burst into an uproar. The master of the Blue Dome, Li Huai, Lu Chao, and the others were extremely excited. They could not help but let out cries into the sky. Jiang Hongxiu's eyes flickered with excitement too. Even though she was already prepared to accept any outcome, she could not deny that this was the result she wanted the most. In comparison, Zhao Wushuang, Jiang Chu, Jiang Xing, and the others' faces instantly turned as pale as paper. Their bodies felt like they were being sucked dry by an invisible force. We lost? Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing's eyes trembled. Their faces turned pale. How could this be? They were geniuses, while Qin Huan was just a mere ruler. How could they lose to such an ant? The third stage, martial chess, has ended. The lone cultivator's figure appeared on the Black Lotus. His voice echoed in all directions. According to the rules, Jiang Hongxiu has obtained the Karmic Fire Badge and the Divine Martial Badge respectively. Therefore, the exquisite Dragon Jade and the three Origin of Gods belong to Jiang Hongxiu. As soon as he finished speaking, Shi Tianjun suddenly yelled, "I don't accept this." He must have used some kind of forbidden technique. Otherwise, how could he have such a powerful martial talent? In just a few hundred breaths, he managed to combine the space-time sacred flame and the true essence of strength to create a brand new space-time art. Before he could finish, the lone cultivator glanced at him and interrupted coldly, "I can accept anyone else, but you can't." Saying this, the lone cultivator swung his sleeve. A magnificent force descended upon Shi Tianjun. He instinctively wanted to struggle, but even he could not stop the lone cultivator. In the blink of an eye, Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing were teleported out. "Since the result is out, I'll send you all away," the lone cultivator said. Daoist Gu said in a clear voice. A blurry saber light immediately shot out from the immortal palace and enveloped the entire dojo. Apart from Jiang Hongxiu and the others, everyone else was sent away. Chapter 2870. Well done. The lone Taoist patted Qin Nan's shoulder and used his power to bring Qin Nan back to the training hall. "Qin Huan, you did well this time." Jiang Xiaoya giggled and said, "We all approve of you. We'll help you settle Sister Hongxiu later." "Xiaoya, don't talk nonsense." Jiang Hongxiu scolded her and then said to Qin Nan seriously, "Qin Huan, thank you so much this time. If you need anything in the future, just let me know." "Don't mention it. I did it for myself." Qin Nan smiled and waved his hand. "Let's cut the pleasantries and cut the crap." The Lord of the Blue Dome walked forward and hammered Qin Nan's chest. "Anyway, congratulations. You have to treat me to a drink later. Speaking of this, after this matter is over, I'll inform my father and ask him to arrange a congratulatory banquet for you." Jiang Hongxiu said to Qin Nan and then looked at the Lord of the Blue Dome and the others. "Brother Zhao, Brother Li, Brother Lu, please come." According to the customs of the five realms, once someone awakened their divine body, they had to arrange a congratulatory banquet and invite their friends. Logically speaking, this congratulatory banquet should be arranged after Qin Nan returned to the Qin family. However, only Qin Huan was left in the Qin family, so Jiang Hongxiu took the initiative to suggest it. However, Jiang Hongxiu didn't realize that after Qin Nan became Qin Huan's master, she didn't reject Qin Huan's identity as much. Li Huai laughed and said, "Of course. I've heard that your Jiang family's supreme immortal wine is very good. I have to try it this time." Lu Chao said coolly, "I'll definitely be there for such a joyous occasion." Qin Nan was stunned. Although he had defeated Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing, which could be said to be shocking and would definitely shock the 5 realms, there didn't seem to be a need for a congratulatory banquet. At this time, the voice of the imperial body echoed in his mind. "Qin Nan, I thank you on behalf of the Qin family. If you have any requests while you're in Qin Huan's body, I'll do my best to satisfy you." Time Saber hesitated for a moment before saying, "Thanks." Qin Nan had used Qin Huan's body to awaken a Khanate martial body. Although Qin Huan would not have a Khanate martial body because of this, Qin Huan's body had received great benefits when he awakened it. Qin Nan was a little puzzled. Just as he was about to say something, he heard the Blue Dome Master sigh and say, "I really didn't expect that you would actually awaken the innate martial body. This kind of divine body is not bad. You have to work hard in the future. Who knows, you might be able to transform into the innate Great Luo physique." When Qin Nan heard this, he was shocked and said, "I've awakened the Xiantian martial body?" The Master of the Blue Dome and the others looked at each other and laughed. "Ha ha, you still don't know." The Master of the Blue Dome Master said, "If you hadn't awakened the Xiantian martial body, how could you have defeated Shi Tianjun and Dong Wangqing?" Qin Nan was completely absent-minded as a storm raged in his heart. Xiantian martial body. He had actually awakened the Xiantian martial body. One had to know that he had come to this illusory realm in order to awaken the Xiantian martial body. According to the spirit of the celestial pole list, he had to complete a mission in the illusory realm before he could leave the illusory realm and successfully awaken the Xiantian martial body. But now, why had he awakened in advance? If the spirit of the celestial pole list was wrong and the Xiantian martial body could actually be awakened in the illusory realm, then the question was, why hadn't the illusory realm ended when he had awakened the Xiantian martial body? Qin Nan suddenly recalled some of the doubts in his heart. For example, why was this illusory realm so powerful that even someone like the Master of the Blue Dome Master could be included in it? It also involved the inheritance of an immortal emperor, the Master of the Boundary Weapon, and even the legendary Tao Master Heaven exchanging? If this isn't an illusory realm triggered by the awakening of the Xiantian martial body, then what is this illusory realm? Is this still an illusory realm? The current situation was somewhat similar to the space-time he had entered previously. The space-time light. However, before entering this place, he had been in the Undying Cycle Mountain and had not come into contact with the space-time light. Then why had he come here? "I did follow the method Ji Xian told me and saw the Xiantian martial light. That was how I came to this illusory realm. The only thing I did was to try to awaken the Xiantian martial body." Questions surfaced in Qin Nan's mind. Hey, what's wrong with you? You don't look too good." The Master of the Blue Dome Master and the others could see Qin Nan's confusion and asked with concern, "Did you exhaust too much of your mental energy?" "No. I'm fine." Qin Nan came to his senses and forced a smile. "Jiang Hongxiu, since you've passed the test, come with me to accept the exquisite inheritance." The lone Taoist looked at Jiang Hongxiu and said, "What do you want to do with the 3 origins of the gods?" Jiang Hongxiu said, "Qin Huan can have the origin of the gods with the Xiantian martial body. As for the other 2, Jiang Xiaoya and the others did not need to consider, but the Master of the Blue Dome Master, Li Huai, and Lu Chao were 3 people. How would they split the 2 origins of the gods? In my opinion, Li Huai should refine the origin of the gods with the Hellfire. Brother Zhao and I will refine the remaining one together." Lu Chao said, "Brother Zhao, what do you think? I'll take advantage of you. The master of the Blue Dome Master smiled and said, All right, Brother Liu, I won't stand on ceremony with you. I'll cover you later. He did not pay much for this token. All right, that's settled then. Jiang Hongxiu nodded. The lone Taoist did not say anything else. He stretched out his hand and summoned the three origins of the gods. Then, the lone Taoist led Jiang Hongxiu into the immortal palace. Li Huai could not wait to start refining. Lu Chao and the master of the Blue Dome Master were about to press the start button when Qin Nan suddenly said, Brother Zhao, I have something to discuss with you. Chapter 2871. On the other side, Jiang Hongxiu followed Taoist Gu into the immortal palace. When they walked through the door, all they saw was darkness. Taoist Gu waved his hand, and the floor instantly turned into a vast starry sky. In the middle of the starry sky, there was a divine dragon. Jiang Hongxiu looked at the divine dragon and sensed a familiar aura. The exquisite phoenix jade in her hand also emitted a loud and clear cry. Before you accept the inheritance, I have a few words to say to you. Taoist Gu looked at the divine dragon with a complicated gaze. Senior, please speak. Jiang Hongxiu said. Do you know how many exquisite divine bodies have appeared in the myriad worlds in the past 100,000 years? Although Taoist Gu was asking her, he did not wait for her to explain. He continued, Before I died, according to our investigation, there were a total of 23 exquisite divine bodies, including my cultivation partner. Jiang Hongxiu listened quietly. Among the 23 people with the exquisite divine body, 9 of them had cultivated it to the greater success stage. However, you should know that almost all of them died in less than 200 years after they reached the greater success stage, including a celestial emperor. Taoist Gu said in a deep voice. Why is that? Jiang Hongxiu frowned slightly. According to her, all the exquisite divine bodies in the world bear an extremely terrifying curse. Once the exquisite divine body reaches the greater mastery realm, the curse will descend and a catastrophe will strike. Taoist Gu sighed softly. Jiang Hongxiu was slightly startled and subconsciously thought of Qin Huan. The Qin family he was in had been cursed by an immortal emperor. Who made this curse? Jiang Hongxiu could not help but ask. We don't know either. The lone Taoist shook his head. Back then, when she reached grand completion, she sensed a curse from the unseen world. I immediately accompanied her across the myriad of worlds and stepped into countless forbidden grounds. However, after 100 years, we only managed to find a single clue. This curse came from the extremely distant primordial age. At that time, the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect still existed and dominated the world. The birth of this curse seems to be related to an ability that was born after the exquisite divine body reached the greater mastery realm. According to our speculations, it might be because this ability is too terrifying, so it was forcefully suppressed by some terrifying existence and is not allowed to reappear in the myriad worlds. That's all I know. She might have found something else, but she didn't tell me and left it for you. Jiang Hongxiu vaguely understood why the senior had spent so much effort to leave behind such a legacy for the person with the exquisite divine body. Perhaps he was unwilling to accept the legacy. At this point, Taoist Gu looked at her and said, Actually, the test she set was very simple and had a great advantage for the Linglong divine body. Later on, I changed the rules to this. I know that you paid a huge price to obtain the Karmic Fire Medallion in the first trial, the Karmic Fire Medallion. However, I don't want to leave her things to a mediocre descendant. Do you understand? Furthermore, if you're alone, you won't be able to contend against the things you'll face in the future. You need a very powerful existence by your side to be able to accompany you. Jiang Hongxiu shook her head and said, Senior, to me, that kind of test is necessary. Taoist Gu nodded and smiled. Your cultivation partner is not bad. It's just that his cultivation is a little weak. You have to let him catch up to you as soon as possible. After saying that, Taoist Gu walked out of the immortal palace. His obsession had disappeared, and he didn't have much time left. He wanted to take one last look at this world. When he reached the other side, he could have a good talk with her. Jiang Hongxiu gently exhaled. She didn't feel anything from Taoist Gu's words. Although they were fake, they still brought her a lot of pressure. Before the first wave died down, another wave came. The burden on her shoulders was getting heavier and heavier. Jiang Hongxiu couldn't help but think of Taoist Gu's last words. She smiled in her heart. That wasn't her cultivation partner. The man who had awakened the Khanate martial body was called Qin Nan. At the same time, Li Huai and Lu Chao quickly sat cross-legged on the training ground and began to refine. Jiang Xiaoya and the others also sat cross-legged to cultivate. What's wrong? What's the matter? The Lord of the Blue Dome asked curiously. You also know that I came from the future. According to the rules, after I awakened the Khanate martial body, I would leave completely. But now, Qin Nan said telepathically, there's no movement. Oh? You can't go back? The Lord of the Blue Dome's eyes lit up. What's the big deal? Follow me in the future. I'll protect you. Qin Nan's face darkened. Suddenly, he had a thought. He tried to send a telepathic message. Actually, I didn't come from the future. I was originally awakening the Khanate martial body. He told the whole story in one breath. However, the Lord of the Blue Dome was confused. What are you talking about, kid? It's buzzing. Qin Nan frowned. Would the Lord of the Blue Dome not be able to hear anything that involved the illusion and his arrival here? Qin Nan pondered for a moment, before he said in a serious tone, as a matter of fact, I have something to ask you. Among the 100 godly physiques, apart from those with the Xiantian martial flesh, are there any other godly physiques that would be dragged into an illusion to train themselves when they awaken? You entered an illusion just now, didn't you? The Lord of the Blue Dome thought carefully and said, It seems that there are a few more. As for which ones, I can't remember clearly. Then, in this universe, is there anyone who can awaken 2 divine bodies at the same time? Chapter 2872. Qin Nan thought back carefully. Before he came to this illusory realm, he had only been doing one thing, and that was to try to awaken his innate martial body. Now that he had entered this illusory realm, his innate martial body had already awakened, and the illusory realm was still continuing. Was it possible that he was actually born with 2 types of divine bodies? If there was, then everything could be explained. It was because he had 2 types of divine bodies that the illusory realm that ultimately evolved was able to include a figure of the Blue Dome Lord's level. This could even be explained. It was because he had 2 types of divine bodies that Zhou Di had reincarnated into him. 2 types of divine bodies? The Blue Dome Lord's pupils shrank and he lowered his voice. Boy, did you discover something? Or is it that, in the future, there will be people with 2 types of divine bodies? That's not it, I just feel that. Qin Nan hesitated for a moment, then said, I might have 2 types of divine bodies. You? The Blue Dome Lord was shocked. After a long while, he took a deep breath and said, Could it be that you have awakened a type of divine body in the future, and now you have awakened an innate martial body? Yes, let's put it this way. Qin Nan thought for a moment and said. He wanted to tell the Blue Dome Lord the whole truth, but once it involved things like the illusory realm, the Blue Dome Lord would not be able to hear clearly. It's also possible that this body of yours originally had an innate martial body, but it was stimulated by you, and then it awakened. The Blue Dome Lord instinctively wanted to refute, but when he thought of the martial talent that Qin Nan had displayed before, the corner of his mouth twitched involuntarily. Phew, boy, there is a well-known fact in the universe that every cultivator can awaken at most one type of divine body or an innate martial body. It is absolutely impossible to awaken a second type. Moreover, other than the innate martial body, all other types of divine bodies, no matter how much good fortune they obtain, are unable to transform into an innate martial body. But, the Blue Dome Lord said secretively, how can we cultivators obey the will of the heavens? Therefore, since ancient times, there have been people who have tried all kinds of methods to awaken the second divine body, or to transform into the innate body. Qin Nan was slightly shocked. Someone succeeded? Maybe he succeeded, maybe he didn't. However, I know that there are two magnificent beings who have figured out the secret. They might have awakened the second divine body or innate body. The Lord of the Blue Dome said slowly, one of them is very likely to be Lord Heaven Changing. Qin Nan's heart trembled. Master Heaven Exchanging Tao? Was this a coincidence? Or, boy, although having two types of divine bodies is heaven-defying good fortune, it also contains a great calamity. After you return to the future, if you don't have enough strength, don't casually reveal yourself to the myriad of worlds. The Master of the Blue Dome said sternly. Qin Nan nodded. Speaking of which, according to my calculations, the boundary tool should be coming for you soon. Don't be in a hurry to refine the origin of gods, I'll calculate its location first. The Master of the Blue Dome warned. All right. The Master of the Blue Dome walked to the side. Qin Nan exhaled softly. He now felt that there was an 80% chance that he did indeed have two types of divine bodies. Moreover, there was a certain possibility that this was somehow related to Lord Heaven Changing. To be honest, it would be a complete lie if Qin Nan wasn't excited when he found out that he had two types of divine bodies. The power of divine bodies was extremely terrifying. If he awakened two types at the same time, it would probably cause his strength to undergo an earth-shattering change. However, after Qin Nan calmed down, he quickly realized a new problem. What was his other type of divine body? What was the opportunity to awaken it? If he was unable to awaken the other type of divine body, would he always be trapped in this illusion and unable to return to the real world? Qin Nan couldn't help but feel a little heavy in his heart. He didn't have much time to begin with. If he delayed here, the situation in the primary upper realm would definitely be a crushing defeat. Forget it, I won't think too much about it for now. When I find the Emperor mark, I should be able to find something. Qin Nan thought to himself and immediately sat down cross-legged. He wasn't in a hurry to refine the origin of gods. Instead, he began to examine his body to see if there were any changes. He finally understood now that it was no wonder that the Emperor body and the Emperor weapon thanked him. His blood, meridians, internal organs, and so on had all undergone a great transformation, as if it had become a Tao body. Not only was it extremely powerful, but it also had a sense of intimacy with the various powers of heaven and earth. To put it simply, if Qin Nan cultivated now, his speed would be several times faster than before, and it would be easier for him to comprehend some strange powers from heaven and earth. Qin Nan couldn't help but sigh. He didn't know if his body would undergo such changes after the illusion ended. Other than that, his soul seemed to have transformed into a Tao soul, which was similar to the changes in his body. Most importantly, he had two different feelings in his heart. These two feelings were two different kinds of abilities. The first ability was that Qin Nan unleashed a golden aura with a single thought, covering an area of 10 miles. In an instant, various kinds of comprehension appeared in his mind, and various thoughts about the various cultivation arts that he was cultivating were born in his mind. This feeling was similar to comprehending the Tao, except that it was several times stronger than comprehending the Tao. This ability isn't bad. Qin Nan's eyes glittered. If he kept using this ability, wouldn't it be easier for him to deduce the great samsara heaven execution? Besides, wouldn't it be faster to cultivate the sacred scripture of space and time? Chapter 2873. Let's call this ability Marshall Field. Qin Nan thought to himself and immediately activated the second ability. In his sea of consciousness, 99 wisps of mysterious golden aura appeared out of thin air. What's this? Qin Nan was puzzled. He tried to activate it with his mind, and a wisp of golden aura immediately flew out of his body. It seemed to have turned into a peerless immortal sword and slashed at the void in front of him with a roar. Its power was shocking. Sword Qi. Qin Nan frowned slightly. Although the power of this golden profound Qi was extraordinary, and that strike just now was enough to kill an Empyrean powerhouse, it was still a bit too weak for him. No, this golden Qi can't be used like this. Qin Nan suddenly understood. He raised his hand and evolved a long saber made of Dharma power. Then, with a thought, the wisps of golden Qi immediately sank into the long saber made of Dharma power. Buzz! An amazing scene appeared. The long saber made of Dharma power seemed to have received a huge boost and underwent an earth-shattering transformation. It turned from an ordinary long saber to an immortal slaying saber and emitted an incomparably sharp saber intent. Qin Nan's eyes lit up. He dispersed the long saber made of Dharma power and released other spells. Then, he integrated the golden Qi into it. The power of this magic art also increased abruptly. This golden Xian Qi can be infused into every spell and increase its power by at least 3 times. Qin Nan could not help but feel happy. Moreover, the golden Qi could be produced almost continuously without consuming any of his strength. As a result, his combat prowess had increased by 3 times. This golden Qi, let's call it martial Qi. Qin Nan praised in his heart. The power of the divine body is indeed extraordinary. In addition, there was another important point. The divine body could be cultivated. Qin Nan's innate martial body had just been awakened. It could be cultivated to the small success, the great success, the perfection, or even the innate Daluo body. As long as the divine body broke through the realm, all of its abilities would be strengthened and new abilities would be born. Qin Nan quickly calmed down and opened the martial field. He only had the first 10 levels of the space-time canon, and now, he had already cultivated it to the 9th level. Thus, there was no need for him to be in a hurry to cultivate it. He could fully focus on deriving the great Samsara Heaven spell. Previously, Qin Nan believed that only after completely deducing the great Unity Heaven art would he be able to awaken the innate martial body. Although the Xiantian martial body had been awakened, this cultivation technique was the foundation of Qin Nan. He still needed to complete it. Only in this way could Qin Nan step into a whole new realm. Time passed little by little. After 2 days and 2 nights, the boundary weapon finally arrived. The scenery around Qin Nan and the Master of the Blue Dome changed, and they once again arrived at the lake. Everything was the same as before, but Qin Nan did not know if it was an illusion, but he felt that there were more golden lines in the sky than before, and the eye seemed to be a little bigger. The second test mission is complete. The ancient voice sounded. The tone did not change, but there were more words. Now, the third test mission is announced. The Master of the Blue Dome nodded at Qin Nan. Although there was no expression on his face, and he did not form any seals, he was already secretly deriving the boundary weapon. Birth, old age, illness, and death is the natural cycle. However, there are currently 3 immortal Emperor-level cultivators who are unwilling to die and turn into corpses. They have gone mad and are to be killed. The time limit is 1 month. If they are unable to complete the mission within a month, they will be disqualified. The ancient voice reverberated in all directions. Qin Nan and the Master of the Blue Dome's faces darkened at the same time. Although they already knew that the world treasure was deliberately targeting them, they didn't expect it to be so overboard. Not only did it kill 3 immortal emperors, but it also had a time limit of 1 month. This was much more difficult than plucking the half-cloud immortal monarch flower. Perhaps none of the geniuses participating in this test would be able to complete it. The scene around them collapsed. At this moment, the master of the blue dome's eyes suddenly emitted a dazzling divine light. He took out a yellow talisman and shouted, "Suppress!" The collapsing scene immediately froze. After a few breaths, the countless golden veins above the lake seemed to have sensed something and shone with an even more dazzling light. Seeing this, the master of the blue dome immediately withdrew the yellow talisman. The two of them returned to the training hall. The boundary weapon is really not a good thing. It actually gave us such a mission. Fortunately, I am well prepared this time and do not need to continue with the next mission. The master of the blue dome cursed. Kid, I should need 5 or 6 days to completely deduce the location of the boundary weapon. You should refine the origin of the gods first. After saying this, the master of the blue dome immediately flew to the other side of the training hall. He summoned the divine steel of sun and moon and suppressed the void all around. Then, he took out several flags. Qin Nan glanced at the master of the blue dome, then looked away and focused all his attention on the origin of the gods. He did not know how effective the origin of the gods would be. Would it be able to raise his innate martial body to the initial success stage? Qin Nan gently exhaled a turbid breath and placed his hand on the origin of the gods. The origin of the gods immediately vibrated and let out a long, melodious sound, as if it was very happy. Waves of indescribable power immediately surged into Qin Nan's body. At first, it was like a river, then it became like a surging wave. Its momentum was astonishing. Chapter 2874. The Time Blade and the Emperor Body saw this scene. Initially, they were very hostile to Qin Nan, but now they even wanted Qin Nan to borrow Qin Huan's body for a period of time. After absorbing and refining the origin of gods, Qin Huan's physical body will be greatly improved. The Emperor Body thought. Suddenly, the Emperor Body and the Time Blade sensed that the energy that was flowing into Qin Nan's body suddenly disappeared and entered a mysterious place. That was where the soul was. It seems that Qin Huan won't get any benefits from the origin of gods, the Time Blade said. In fact, this was normal. After all, it was Qin Nan's innate martial body that was awakened by his soul. The origin of gods could only be refined and absorbed by the divine body. If this boy is a descendant of the Qin family, then the Qin family may have another quasi-emperor who can strive for the immortal emperor realm. The Emperor Body sighed. Don't even think about it. The Time Blade shook its head and said, I hope that after Qin Huan recovers, there will be some changes. The cultivation of the divine body was different from ordinary cultivation. Not long after, in Qin Nan's soul, wisps of purple-gold aura gradually appeared between his eyebrows. Finally, they condensed into a small person, shining with golden light. The energy absorbed from the origin of gods continued to enter the small person, causing it to grow little by little. In addition, there was also a faint understanding that gradually appeared in Qin Nan's heart. This was the experience that the previous person with a greater success innate martial body had accumulated from using the innate martial body. This was the benefit of the origin of gods of the same divine body. For example, Li Huai refined the Hellfire divine origin. Not only did he not know this experience, but he could also only absorb 20 to 30% of it. Time flew by. 5 days later, Li Huai and Lu Chao had both absorbed the origin of gods and gained great benefit. They were in seclusion to experience it carefully. Suddenly, they heard a roar. When they opened their eyes, they saw Qin Nan's body emitting a dazzling golden light, like a god, enveloping the entire training hall. Whoosh! In their minds, including those of Jiang Xiaoya and the others who were cultivating in seclusion, a ray of light seemed to have flashed through their mind. The many doubts they had on the path of cultivation were suddenly cleared. Small success, divine body. Li Huai and Lu Chao's eyes were filled with envy. Back then, when they were awakened, it took them dozens of years to cultivate their god body to the small success realm. It had only been 5 days for Qin Huan. At this moment, in Qin Nan's soul, the tiny purple-gold figure had undergone a tremendous change. It had grown into a giant purple-gold tree. Countless branches and leaves extended from the tree. Radiance blossomed from the limbs and bones of the soul. Although the third ability had not been awakened, both his martial domain and martial qi had improved tremendously. The effect of the former had doubled, and the number of streams of martial qi had increased from 99 streams to 199 streams. It was highly possible that the power of his martial arts would be increased significantly after merging them with his martial arts. On top of that, Qin Nan was completely immersed in the experience of the martial ancestor. The martial ancestor had 3 abilities. Qin Nan was not familiar with the third ability, thus Qin Nan was unable to learn anything related to it. However, in terms of martial domain and martial qi, the martial ancestor was quite outstanding, as he had invented a way to reverse the situation of the martial domain. Once the reverse martial domain was executed, it would cause the cultivator to enter a state of mental exhaustion. At first glance, it did not seem significant, but in a battle of life and death between experts, apart from their cultivation, the sudden burst of inspiration was extremely important too. Many experts had experienced an unprecedented pressure when they were in a life and death situation, thus allowing them to have a breakthrough and turn the tide of the battle. However, the appearance of the reverse martial domain had almost eliminated such situations. There was also the matter of martial qi. After countless attempts, the senior actually managed to combine his martial qi with a curse technique and a sword technique to create 2 completely new techniques. The curse was known as the martial abandonment curse. Once the curse was cast, it would plant a seed in the cultivator's heart. The longer the cultivator practiced it, the more boring the martial path would be, which would cause them to give up on the martial path. This curse could be said to be extremely cruel. The sword art was known as the martial severing sword. Its sword intent was extremely imperious. Not only was the power of the slash shocking, it could also cause the cultivator to feel despair toward the path of martial arts. Most importantly, the martial ancestor's actions had opened up Qin Nan's mind. Putting the martial domain aside, there were still many ways to utilize martial qi. Another 8 hours later, Qin Nan had fully absorbed the experience, and gradually regained his consciousness. He could not help but feel a sense of satisfaction in his heart. There's still a little left? I can use it to strengthen my foundation. Qin Nan saw that there was still a corner of the god origin left. He continued to absorb it, as he was preparing to experience the feeling of achieving the minor success stage of the god body. At this moment, the purple-golden tree in his soul unleashed wisps of gray aura, which caused his consciousness to enter a dark place in the blink of an eye. This is... Qin Nan frowned slightly, but his heart soon shuddered. He saw 2 rays of light. He was extremely familiar with the 2 rays of light. They were the Xiantian martial glows that he had seen before coming to the illusionary realm. However, he had seen 3 rays of light, but there were only 2 now. Chapter 2875. What was going on? Could it be? A shocking thought popped into Qin Nan's mind. He had 3 divine bodies? Now that he had awakened the innate martial body, he had lost 1 innate martial light, so there were still 2 left? If that was the case, it would be too shocking. To be honest, Qin Nan felt that when he had 2 divine bodies, he was excited, and looking forward to it. But now, he felt a little uneasy. According to the master of the Blue Dome, having two divine bodies was already extremely heaven-defying and could not be easily displayed. What about having three divine bodies at the same time? Moreover, from another perspective, there were so many living beings in the nine heaven world, so why did he have three divine bodies? Maybe this innate martial light refers to something else. Qin Nan shook his head and quickly calmed himself down. He did not think too much about it. If there was really a secret behind all this, it was definitely not something he could know now. What he needed to do was to take every step in front of him and leave the illusion as soon as possible and return to the nine heaven world. At the same time, outside the Three Saints space, at that time, Lone Taoist had directly sent all the cultivators here with a flick of his sleeve. Even though many of them were unwilling, after trying for a while and being unable to force their way into the Three Saints space, they could only leave one by one. After all, the Three Saints space was only one of the many great inheritances in the lawless sea of stars. Moreover, they had more important things to do, and that was to complete the mission given by the boundary weapon. Obtaining the boundary weapon and becoming the world lord was the key. Therefore, there were only a few figures near the Three Saints space. Some of them had just arrived, and only one figure had been quietly lurking. This person was sure Tianjun. If it were any other enemy, he might have chosen to leave first and search for all kinds of opportunities before finding an opportunity to kill the enemy. However, Qin Nan was different. Apart from killing this person without a doubt, what had happened in the martial arts chess had angered him even more. Because Qin Nan's victory made all the words he had said before like a loud slap to his face. Of course, although he was angry, he did not lose his mind. According to his calculations, Jiang Hongxiu would need a long time to absorb the exquisite inheritance. She would not be able to come out in a short time. Li Huai, Lu Chao, and Qin Huan were all able to get a share of the origin of gods. However, the refinement of this item was extremely fast. It only required 6 to 7 days. Li Huai and Lu Chao were favored by the heavens, so they definitely had to complete the boundary artifact mission. Therefore, when the time came, they would definitely be separated from Qin Huan. Even if they were not separated, as long as Jiang Hongxiu was not around, he had a 30% chance of killing all of them. If they split up, then he had a 60% chance of success. At the very least, he could severely injure Qin Huan. Come out. Suddenly, Shi Tianjun looked at the distant void and said coldly. There was a ripple in the air as Saint Jiang, Jiang Chu, and their respective guardians appeared. As expected of the number one of the 5 realms. You can even discover us like this. Jiang Chu praised and cupped his hands. Fellow Taoist, sure, let's cut to the chase. We're here to join forces with you to kill Qin Huan. Join forces with me? Shi Tianjun raised his eyebrows slightly. If I remember correctly, all of you are from the Jiang family, right? Qin Huan should be your brother-in-law, right? No matter how big the conflict is between all of you, you're still one of us. I'm just an outsider. We're not one of us, Jiang Chu said with hatred. If not for Qin Huan, how could Jiang Hongxiu obtain the Linglong inheritance? Moreover, he's no longer that insignificant ant. The meaning of his words was clear. In the past, Jiang Hongxiu was only slightly stronger than them. Now she was far stronger than them. In addition, Qin Huan had awakened the Khanate martial body. He would definitely be valued by the family. Furthermore, Qin Huan had the support of the Qin family, which had accumulated a lot of resources. They could not touch Jiang Hongxiu, but Qin Huan's cultivation was still weak. If they killed Qin Huan, they would be able to resolve the hatred in their hearts. Secondly, they would get rid of Jiang Hongxiu's great support. They would still have some status in the Jiang family. Shi Tianjun understood the crux of the matter. A mocking look flashed across his eyes as he nodded. At that moment, on the training ground, the Blue Dome Lord shouted the word "quick" in his heart. An invisible wave immediately spread out in all directions with him as the center. The lone Taoist, who was hiding in the dark, frowned and looked over. He had long taken notice of the Blue Dome Lord because the aura in his body was too mysterious. It even made him wary. However, when he saw that this person was beside the Linglong inheritor, he did not rashly disturb them. The Blue Dome Lord changed his hand seal and chanted a mysterious spell. The flags around him immediately burned without any fire. In his heart there was an incomparably mysterious lake that seemed to be boiling. The lake water was boiling violently. However, before long, the lake water gradually calmed down. When it completely calmed down, an image appeared in the middle of the lake. It was a land of white fog. A dark red stone tablet covered in mottled marks stood quietly. It was not tall, only about 15 meters tall. However, the aura it exuded was like an endless abyss. This was the boundary weapon of the Juetian world, the Juetian tablet. Chapter 2876. Haha, I've finally found you. The master of the Blue Dome laughed coldly and formed another seal. A connection was immediately established in his heart. Even without the map of the lawless sea of stars, he could still find the Juetian steel. The Juetian steel seemed to have sensed something and shook slightly, releasing strands of golden light. An imposing force actually came along with the mysteries of heaven, as if it wanted to take the opportunity to figure out who was spying on it. Save your energy. I'm spying on you with the Lake of Chaos. You only have spirituality and no intelligence at all. How can you find me? The master of the Blue Dome curled his lips and said, "Just wait for me to find you." After he finished speaking, the master of the Blue Dome moved his mind and the surface of the lake immediately froze, sealing all the mysteries of heaven within. The master of the Blue Dome opened his eyes and found that Qin Nan's aura was different. He immediately exclaimed, "You've reached the small success stage so quickly?" Qin Nan woke up and saw that he was in a good mood. He transmitted his voice, "It's done." "Of course. Didn't you see who did it?" The master of the Blue Dome said proudly. "The boundary artifact didn't notice? We found its location in advance, so it should be on guard against us, right?" Qin Nan asked. "Don't worry. Although it knows that someone is spying on it, it doesn't know who did it. Moreover, if it changes its location, we can still find it." The master of the Blue Dome said, "All right, stop dawdling. Let's hurry up and get on our way." "Yes, let's say hello to them first." Qin Nan stood up. This time, he naturally would not bring Li Huai and Lu Chao. However, at this moment, a mysterious force suddenly fell from the endless void. Qin Nan and the master of the Blue Dome only felt the scene before their eyes change, and they arrived at a familiar lake. "This is..." The master of the Blue Dome was slightly stunned. Why did the will of the boundary artifact suddenly descend? Didn't they already accept the third test? Could it be? Qin Nan subconsciously looked up and discovered that the sky was different. Not only had the golden array pattern doubled in size, but there were also streaks of blood between the array patterns, which had completely transformed into an eye. A feeling of being watched rose in Qin Nan's heart, causing him to subconsciously tighten his body. "It's you guys, right? You were the ones who were spying on me earlier, right?" The ancient voice sounded again, but the tone was no longer cold and emotionless. Instead, it was a stern questioning tone. "How did you find us?" The Blue Dome Master's face was full of disbelief. "That's impossible. This is indeed a very profound prying technique. If someone else were to use this technique, I would definitely not be able to sense it. However, I have been watching you since the moment you stepped into the lawless sea of stars." Murderous intent could be heard in the ancient voice. "I have warned you again and again, but I didn't expect that not only did you not back down, you even became more aggressive. If that's the case, don't blame me for being impolite." After he finished speaking, everything returned to normal. The pressure on Qin Nan and the Blue Dome Master suddenly disappeared, and they could not help but look at each other. No. Something's not right. The Blue Dome Master suddenly realized something and exclaimed, "This boundary weapon actually has spiritual intelligence." It should be known that all the boundary weapons in the universe had extremely high spiritual intelligence, and they would even appear to issue different missions according to their own emotions. However, none of the boundary weapons had spiritual intelligence, which meant that they would never give birth to an artifact spirit. That was because boundary weapons were born in response to the heavens and earth. They were connected to a world's fate, destiny, and so on. The world wanted to use them to find a suitable expert to assist the world. If a boundary weapon had a spirit, then what was the difference between it and a magic treasure? When a boundary weapon chose its master, could it completely rely on its own will to make the decision? The existence of an artifact spirit would create too many unstable factors. Therefore, after a boundary weapon was born, it would not have an artifact spirit. F***ck. I understand now why there hasn't been a new boundary master in the Juetian domain for so long. It's not because of the Imperial Seal, but because this boundary weapon has given birth to an artifact spirit. The Blue Dome Master suddenly came to his senses and realized the problem. How can a boundary weapon give birth to an artifact spirit? Even with the help of the Cloud End Immortal Emperor, it's impossible. Could it be because of the Imperial Seal? The Blue Dome Master could not help but take a deep breath. At this moment, outside the Three Saints' space, Shi Tianjun and the others suddenly felt that the heavens and earth were beginning to shake. They were very familiar with this. The chaotic sea of stars was about to change again. However, it did not matter. They had already used a method to lock onto the Three Saints' space. Even if they were transported to the other side, they could still find their way back. Shi Tianjun keenly sensed that something was wrong. As expected, the expected chaos did not appear. Instead, a huge crack appeared in the Three Saints' space, and three blood-red figures charged out. They erupted with shocking auras as they madly attacked the Three Saints' space. These are three demonic celestial lords? Shi Tianjun and the others immediately felt a terrifying pressure from the three figures. They could not help but be shocked. What was going on? Before they could react, cracks appeared around the Three Saints' space one after another. Waves of terrifying auras kept surging out. Chapter 2877. At the same time, on the training field in the Three Saints' space, Qin Nan quickly calmed down and asked, "Was the artifact spirit so angry just now because we found it ahead of time, or because we were plotting to knock on the Emperor's seal?" "It must be the latter. We found it ahead of time because we did it on our own accord. Even though we're in the midst of a battle for the boundary artifact, it's not against the rules," the Master of the Blue Dome said. "Then this is troublesome," Qin Nan said solemnly. "This artifact spirit clearly doesn't want us to meddle with the Emperor's seal. Indeed, this artifact spirit is ambitious." The Master of the Blue Dome laughed coldly. "It's doing this because it wants to completely take over the Emperor's seal and use its power to achieve its goal. If I'm not wrong, it probably doesn't want to recognize anyone as its master anymore. It wants to transform into a cultivator and break free from the restraints of the boundary artifact, or completely control the boundary artifact and become the master of the Juetian domain. Damn it, this boundary artifact really can't have an artifact spirit. Otherwise, it wouldn't follow the rules." Qin Nan couldn't help but think of the supreme treasures in the Blue Dome. Their artifact spirits were the same. After learning that the Master of the Blue Dome had completely fallen, they weren't willing to abide by the rules set by the Master of the Blue Dome. After all, artifact spirits were different from spirituality. They were no different from humans. "If what you're saying is true, then we should hurry over now." A light flashed in Qin Nan's eyes. The artifact spirit is so angry because it hasn't completely controlled the Emperor's seal and achieved its goal. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so against us. After all, our cultivation is only that of a ruler and a supreme heavenly venerate. You're right, time is of the essence. The master of the blue dome sighed and waved his hand, summoning the broken Emperor's brush. Wait. At this moment, the lonely Taoist suddenly walked out and stared at the two of them. What did you two do just now? Although the solitary Taoist was just a wisp of lingering spirit, he had previously displayed the might of a quasi-emperor. Furthermore, he was the one who had created this place, so he had the advantage of being in the right place at the right time. The master of the Blue Dome naturally didn't want to cause any more trouble. He said, "Senior Gu, we were just deducing the whereabouts of a supreme treasure." A supreme treasure? Taoist Gu raised his eyebrows slightly and said with a faint smile, "I'm afraid this is no ordinary treasure. It's a boundary weapon of this realm, right?" "How did you know?" The master of the Blue Dome looked shocked. Since when could a mere quasi-emperor obsession see through his means? Taoist Gu shook his head and said, "Your methods are very clever, I didn't see through it. I only deduced it. You two, take a look." The lone Taoist waved his hand and a water screen appeared not far in front of him. The screen showed the outside of the Three Saints' space. Numerous cracks filled the void all around. The three immortal emperors who had turned into demons, the group of demons who had lost their minds, the dragon corpse that had been buried for 10,000 years, the mysterious bronze coffin, and so on. There were dozens of powerful and terrifying existences that were madly attacking the Three Saints' space, causing the Three Saints statue to tremble incessantly and totter on the verge of collapse. Qin Nan and the master of the Blue Dome felt their scalps go numb. This weapon spirit really did what it said and didn't waste any time. It had attracted so many murderous intents so quickly. If they had walked out like this earlier, even if Qin Nan had an emperor body and emperor weapon in his body, and the master of the Blue Dome had forbidden techniques, they would likely have died. I've also participated in the battle for the boundary weapon once. At that time, there was a person with an innate constitution who had also found the location of the boundary weapon in advance. However, that boundary weapon didn't react at all. Since the boundary weapon of the supreme immortal realm reacted so strongly, I'm sure the lonely Taoist had already deduced the general situation based on these clues, and wisps of divine light appeared in his illusory eyes. However, this wasn't the end. Wisps of mysterious power descended from the boundless void and landed on the bodies of Li Huai, Lu Chao, and the others who were on the other side. They weren't the only ones experiencing this. During the start of the Dharma Immortal Assembly, all the cultivators who had come to participate in the boundary weapon assessment, including the Tao Protectors, had been sucked into the lake by a mysterious force. What's going on? Wasn't the mission completed just now? Why is it here now? Is the boundary weapon trying to give us two missions at once? Shi Tianjun, Dong Wangqing, Zhao Wushuang, Jiang Xing, Jiang Chu, and all the other geniuses, as well as the protectors, were puzzled. Soon, the weapon spirit's ancient and cold voice rang in everyone's ears at the same time. There's a sudden change in the battle for the boundary weapon. Two existences possessed by the ancient evil god intend to find the location of the boundary weapon in advance and destroy it during the battle for the boundary weapon. Now, all the missions that were previously given will be suspended. All participants will carry out the mission of killing the evil god until the evil god is killed. If you kill one of them, you can directly participate in the final round of the battle for the top 10. If you kill both of them, you can also participate in the battle for the top 10 and obtain an opportunity. As soon as it finished speaking, the surface of the lake surged. Droplets of water flew out from the lake and condensed into two images in midair. These were two portraits. At this moment, rumbling thunder resounded throughout the disorderly sea of stars. You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.